Good evening. My name is Mayor Scott Fogel. I would like to welcome everybody to tonight's West Milton Council meeting. Today is July the 11th, 2017, 7:30 p.m. If everybody could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation by Council Chairperson Sarah Kopp. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you now, and we just thank you so much for bringing us all here tonight. We're excited for the big plans that you have for West Milton, and we just ask that you would put a blessing on it, Lord, and help us to make good decisions as a community. Help us to support each other and be respectful and loving to each other. And I just thank you for everyone who is attending tonight, and I just pray that you bless us and watch over us as a community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Ms. Kopp.
Yep.
Please be seated. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Fogel?
Here.
Hurst?
Here.
Kopp?
Here.
Miller?
Here.
Grudich?
Here.
Dorman?
Here.
And Tinnerman.
Here. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is a motion to excuse absent council members. I don't think we have that. That was already done previously. So we can move on to the next agenda item, which is approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes for approval. The council meeting on June the 13th of 2017 and the council special session and workshop June 27th, 2017. I'd like to entertain a motion from council to approve both minutes.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Hurst?
Yes.
Kopp?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Grudich?
Yes.
Dorman?
Yes.
Tinnerman?
Yes.
And Mayor Fogel?
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is correspondence to council. Manager Klein, do we have any correspondence to council tonight?
None this evening, Mayor?
Okay. In this block, we'd like to open the floor up for a special speaker. We have Becky Garrett's here tonight to talk about the Bulldog bags that she has established through the Hoffman United Methodist Church. And so I'd like to invite Becky up to the podium to give some details about that program. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me come and talk today. So I'm going to start with just introducing myself and kind of give you a background onto why I started this program, and then kind of give you just some knowledge about the program. So I'm Becky Garrett. I graduated from Milton. I've been a Milton community member for my whole life, and I graduated in 2005 and went to college to become a teacher. And I graduated, got a job in Piqua, and then had a baby and decided to stay home with him. And then I started subbing at Milton. And I noticed that through my subbing, I had found that Milton didn't really have any help for the kids over the weekend. When I taught in Piqua, there was a lot of help. The kids got bags of food for the weekend, and it really helped them. They were ready to learn on Monday. It was great. When I subbed in Troy, I also noticed that they also had bags. So I thought, well, why hasn't Milton started something like this? So I approached the counselors, and I just asked them, and they said that they had a few people interested in starting something. They just didn't know how to start it. And so I thought, well, I've been through the program, so I know kind of what to do. And so I just sat down with my church and I said, I think we have a local mission here that we can definitely do. And so they were 100% behind me. So in September, I asked them to sponsor 30 kindergartners. We were gonna start with 30, that was our goal for the year. And in 2 Sundays, we had 30 kids sponsored for a whole entire year. And they got bags every Friday to take home with them. And so that was really cool, and we just went with it for a month, and then the counselors asked if we could add the kids' siblings. So we had the money saved, so we decided to do that. So we added 11 siblings in November, and then I started speaking at different clubs and meetings and groups, and the Rotary, the West Milton Rotary, stepped up and said, we're going to cover 30 first graders. I said, wow, that's awesome. So we added 30 first graders in January. So around January, we were helping 75 kids, and I had started with that goal of 30. So this is great. This is so cool. And then by the end of May, which was the end of school, we were helping 86 kids have bags of food every Friday to take home with them. And so that was just kind of mind-blowing because I didn't see that happening. But then the counselor said, how about next year you try to cover 220 kids? And I said, oh my gosh, that's a lot of kids. But we're going to definitely do it because if God opens doors, he's going to open a huge one for this one. So we went for it, and this year we are going to sponsor 220 kids. I've gotten grants to help, but I'm also asking tons of people. I've asked all the churches to consider sponsoring kids. I've asked different clubs, groups, everyone I can think of. And so now I'm coming to the community and just asking for more. It's a big chunk of kids, but it's only K-5. So it's not even reaching our middle schoolers, our high schoolers, which at some point we should do. And so this year, though, one child is $160 for the whole entire year. So they would get a bag every Friday. And when I was in Pickwood teaching, the bags would have like 6 or 7 items. Our bags were having 14 to 15 items in them. We do 2 breakfast items, 2 lunch items, 2 snacks, 2 chips or pretzels or something like that. Apple, banana, drinks. We try to kind of mix it all together and hit all the food groups, basically. And so our bags are more, so that's why the price is a little bit higher than the other communities' bags might be. But $160 really isn't that much when you think of giving food to kids for a whole entire year. So that's kind of what we're doing this year. Some people have been able to sponsor kids for a whole year, some just a month, which I have some papers that I can leave for people if they would like to go out and just let their friends know, their neighbors know, anybody really. And all of the money just goes to Hoffman Church, and then they have a budget for me that I take that money from, and then I use it to buy the food. We have a really cool thing starting this year that was not in place last year. I am working with New Path Ministries out of Tip City, and they are actually buying all the food for me. So I used to go to Sam's Club every week and buy the food myself, but now with 220 kids, I don't think I can do that. So they're gonna buy the food and get it to me, and we're gonna store it at the school. Actually, we have a room there that we're gonna use, and we have high schoolers come down and package. So this year we had about 5 or 6 National Honor Society kids come each Thursday, package the food with us, and then I would take it to the school on Friday mornings, and I would have 7 or 8 high schoolers come down and distribute the food for me. It was a great way to involve the high schoolers into a mission like that, and I think they all loved it. They all talked about it, and when Channel 7 did their little interview, some of the kids even got to talk. So that was really cool. And I don't know, it's just kind of started out very, very small idea and has just blown up into this awesome thing. So I hope that you can just talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, tell them about it. If you belong to a church or a group, just kind of really encourage them to help us continue to reach the kids of our community because they need it. They need it as much as possible. So
Sounds great.
thank
I have
you.
a couple questions
Yeah.
for you. As far as contact info, so
Yes.
if somebody wants to donate funds or if they want to volunteer to help out with putting together the bag because I'm assuming that going from 86 kids to 220,
Yeah.
you're going to need more volunteers, because I know my daughter is part of
Yeah.
the National Honor Society, and
Zoe,
she
yeah.
helped out this past year.
Yeah.
So 6 kids is not probably going to be able to
Right. It'll
do
take
all
us a
that
while.
work. So if people would want to volunteer or donate money,
Mhm.
do they just contact someone specifically at Hoffman, or
Um,
contact you, or?
So the money can be written to Hoffman Church, and then on the memo, you could put Becky Garrett or Bulldog Bags or something like that. I do have a Facebook page, and it's, I think it's just Bulldog Bags. I think that's what it's called. And so if you want to get a hold of me that way, I'm always on there, so that was a pretty good way to do it.
So if we could get a couple of your flyers, what I'd like to do too is maybe get this publicized on our public access channel, have Tom put that out there for,
That'd be great.
you know, additional funding and volunteers, so
Yeah.
forth, and they could contact you or the church directly and go from there. Sound good? Any other questions from anyone on council?
Yeah. Does it help during the summertime or just during the school year?
So this year, at 3 different churches in the community, we had lunch bunch, or we're having lunch bunch, and that's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday program that has been around for 10 years, and they give free lunches on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. That's really the only, we encouraged all of those families to participate in it. If, I don't know if they did, I don't know the families. But yeah, we haven't thought about growing into the summer just because of those free lunch programs. There's one at Good Shepherd, one at Hoffman, and then one in Potsdam, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Very good.
It's really neat. My kids are in school and I've never heard of it, so I'm glad that you spoke up about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We kept it a secret for a while.
Oh. And that's
Because
another
we
thing.
weren't sure if it was gonna work.
How do you decide which kids you're gonna choose?
The counselors helped me decide.
Okay.
What they did was they just looked at the free and reduced lunch
Mm-hmm.
count, and then, but if they knew of families who did need the help, then we would just ask them, even if they weren't free and reduced lunch. So
Okay.
it was basically the counselors really doing their networking
Mm-hmm.
and knowing the kids. And like I said, I never met any of the kids. I didn't know the kids personally, so this was all very secretive
Okay.
in that part.
Yes.
Which was good for the families, but
Neat. Well, thanks for doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Any other questions from council? Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate the
you.
presentation. Okay, next on the agenda is the mayoral proclamation for Curry's Video Plus. And I talked to Candy Curry back in April when the decision was made to close up Curry's Video here in town. And so I told her we wanted to do something from council, some type of proclamation or recognition for their time in business. So I am going to read a mayoral proclamation, and after I'm done reading this, I would like the Currys, if they could, to step up front, and we'll take a couple of pictures and present you the proclamation. So, whereas the first VCR to use VHS tapes was introduced to the public on September 9th, 1976, followed by the first video rental store in the United States in December 1977. And whereas, at its peak, the video rental store industry included over 15,000 stores throughout the United States, which were literally changed our habits on Saturday night. And whereas, Curry's Video Plus opened on 1 November 1990 at 30 South Miami Street in a building originally built in 1878 for Doc Jenkins Medical Practice. And whereas Curry's Video Plus began operations with 367 VHS tapes and 36 video games, and during their 27 years of operations grew to 7,200 DVDs and games. Pretty impressive. And whereas Curry's Video Plus, a truly family-run business and the last independently owned video store in Miami County, with a customer base of nearly 4,300 people in a town of 4,790 people sadly closed their doors on 21 April 2017. Now therefore, I, Scott Fogel, Mayor of West Milton, Ohio, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Charter and laws of the Village of West Milton, State of Ohio, do hereby proclaim the 21st day of April to forever be Mike and Candy Curry Day in honor of Curry's Video Plus. And I thank them for providing an energy to downtown, a commitment to West Milton, and hours of family entertainment to thousands of people. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this the 11th day of July in the year of our Lord 2017 in the village of West Milton, Ohio. So I would just like to say, I'd like to thank you and your family for all you provided to this community with entertainment and being able to rent videos and games. I know me and my family enjoyed it. I wasn't here a lot during that time because I was gone and I didn't move back here until 2010, but from the day we moved back here until you closed, we were able to enjoy your business. So I really thank you for that. And before I stand up, if anybody else on council would like to say anything, I'll open the floor to you as well.
Just thank you not only for what your business provided, but your support for West Milton in general. You were a staple of this community, and still will be. Thank you.
We send those overdue fee checks to. I'll never forget every time we would go in there because we always have late fees, and your staff or you would look at us and go, "You know, you have some over," and I'd be like, "Yes, yes, yes." I'm more surprised when you didn't tell me that, to be honest. So. But always a memory, and especially when Monday was a holiday and you got an extra day on the rental, we always loaded up. So, as a lot of people did, always a pleasure.
Okay. There we go. That's perfect. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Got it. Very good. All right. Congratulations.
Maybe. I still don't want 20 minutes.
Okay, continuing on with the meeting. Next on the agenda is comments from citizens regarding tonight's legislation. I would like to say that we have 4 pieces of legislation tonight. If you could please hold any comments in reference to CM 17-18, that is the ordinance for amending our zoning of Stillwater crossings, because we're going to have a public hearing and we'll open up the floor at that time. So if anyone has any comments in reference to the resolution for economic development, the creating of a commercial TIF, or creating of an incentive district TIF, you can please stand up, introduce yourself and where you live, and we'll hopefully address your comment. Okay? Seeing none, we'll move on with our ordinances and resolutions. The first one is CM 17-17, a resolution for an economic development plan for Stillwater Crossings. Ms. Ross.
It's a resolution adopting an economic development plan for the Stillwater Crossing area. Whereas the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, referred to as the municipality, intends to facilitate the residential and commercial development of a portion of the municipality located in lot 1459, and more fully describes in attached Exhibit A, Stillwater Crossing area, all to improve the quality of life for the residents of the municipality. And whereas, in furtherance of its efforts to cause the residential and commercial development of the Stillwater Crossing area, and in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.40, the municipality may create an incentive district for parcels of real property located within the municipal corporate boundaries of the municipality, declare improvements to such parcels of real property located in the incentive district to be a public purpose, grant real property tax exemptions for the increased value of real property in the incentive district, require the owners of real property in the incentive district to make service payments in lieu of taxes, and use those service payments in lieu of taxes for various purposes authorized by law. And whereas in connection with the potential creation of the incentive district, the municipality has determined to adopt an economic development plan and the form attached to and incorporated into this resolution as Exhibit B, referred to as the Stillwater Crossing Economic Development Plan. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, Economic Development Plan, this council hereby adopts the Economic Development Plan attached to and incorporated into this resolution as Exhibit B. Section 2, Further Authorizations. This council further hereby authorizes and directs the municipal manager and other appropriate officers of the municipality to prepare and sign all agreements and instruments, and to take any other actions as may be appropriate to implement this resolution. Section 3, Open Meetings. This council finds and determines that all formal actions of this council and any of its committees concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were in meetings open to the public, all in compliance with the law, including RC Section 121.22. Section 4, this resolution shall be effective from and after the earliest time provided by law.
Thank you, Ms. Brosh. Manager Klein, any comments?
Excuse me, Mayor, Council. This is, I believe we've gone over this several times. This is a resolution that is required as it describes in the body of the resolution. And it's really in regard to the incentive district TIF, which I believe is 1720. It's required by ORC to have an economic development plan when you're going to create an incentive district TIF, and that's what this resolution is doing.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve resolution CM 17-17.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Hurst.
Yes.
Cop.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Grudich.
Yes.
Dorman.
Yes.
Tinnerman.
Yes.
And Mayor Vogel.
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is CM 17-18, an ordinance amending zoning, Stillwater Crossings. Ms. Brock.
It's an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of West Milton as adopted by Chapter 150.006 of the West Milton Code of Ordinances. Whereas the West Milton Planning Board received a petition to modify the zoning district boundary of a parcel of real estate described as in-lot number 1459, approximately 97.047 acres, from A1 Agricultural District to PD1 Planned Residential Development and PD2 Planned Business Development, the Stillwater Crossings. And whereas council has received an affirmative recommendation from the West Milton Planning Board to amend the official zoning map of West Milton by changing the zoning district boundaries of a parcel of real estate being described as in-lot 1459 from A1 Agricultural District to PD1 Planned Residential Development and PD2 Planned Business Development, the Stillwater Crossings. And whereas Section 150.319C requires council to modify zoning boundaries by ordinance as prescribed by West Milton Charter, Section 4.14. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, council accepts the recommendation of the West Milton Planning Board to modify the zoning district boundary of a parcel of real estate described as in-lot 1459, approximately 97.047 acres, from A1 Agricultural District to PD1 Planned Residential District and PD2 Planned Business Development. See attached Exhibit 1. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect 10 days after the second reading and approval by council.
Thank you, Ms. Brosh. And that is the first reading of CM 17-18. At this time, I would like to officially open public hearing for this ordinance, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Manager Klein.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and guests this evening. Only just a few comments. As the ordinance describes, this is the rezoning of an agricultural district of approximately 100 acres on the other side of Stillwater River, on the corner of 571 and Iddings Road. It has gone through the proper channels with the planning board. They did approve it. As described, a PD1 is a planned development for residential, and PD2 is a planned development for commercial or business activities. To describe it further, I would like to introduce Mr. David Reed, who's representing Stillwater Crossings Development.
My name is Dave Reed. I'm here as attorney on behalf of Stillwater Crossings. Just very briefly, I'm with the law firm of Taft, Stettinius & Hollister, and I practice in the area of zoning and land use. That's where I practiced for 26 years. Most of that representation is of developers of the private sector, but I've also served as special counsel for governmental bodies inside and outside the state of Ohio, and I've represented citizens groups from time to time as well. So that's just a little bit about my background. In terms of what we're going to do tonight, I want to just quickly give you a summary of the order of our presentation, just so you kind of know what's coming. First, I will give a project overview, an overview of what we're looking to do here. Then Jeff Putoff of Choice One Engineering will present the actual PD plan. That's our plan development plan with the technical aspects of what we're looking to accomplish. Then Mark Locke of Ryan Homes is here as well. I tried to answer some questions concerning the residential portion of the development. I think I was able to answer a few of those previously, but Mark obviously knows more about that than I do, and so he's going to be available to answer questions about that piece of it. And you're familiar with Caleb Bell. He's here as well if there's any questions for him. So I'll start with the project overview. I just want to first of all point out that for me, what a pleasure it has been working through this project up to this stage. And the reason for that is that I, in my 26 years as a dirt attorney, that's what they call us affectionately, people who turn dirt into something else, but as a dirt attorney, I have seen some really bad projects over the years. I've been involved with them, usually after the fact, usually not at the inception, trying to get them back above ground and moving forward. And I've also had the privilege to work on some thoughtful, well-planned out projects. And I want this body to understand this is a thoughtful, well-planned out project. The only maybe downside about being a thoughtful, well-thought-out project is that's why it's taken so long for us to get to this point. It's because your staff and the developer have shown a mutual commitment, the two of them, and the staff and I know the Planning Commission, to work towards a development, to patiently work towards a development that will work both for the developer, but that will also make West Milton a better community. So that has taken a long time, but it's been worthwhile, and we're happy to be here to finally make our zoning presentation, and it's something we can be proud of and we can proudly present to you. But it's not just the month that it's taken. It's not just the untold hours of meetings between the developer and Matt and other representatives of the city. Really more importantly than the time is the qualitative nature of what that planning has entailed. I can't go over all of it here because maybe real estate nerds like me like to do that, but I'm not going to go over everything that's taken place. But I want to hit two main areas of the planning process that I think the council can be particularly proud of. First of all is just the land use and zoning approach. PDs, or sometimes they're referred to as PUDs. So the first topic is just the land use approach that you guys have taken here. PDs or PUDs, as they're referred to in some jurisdictions, are one of the best and most effective methods to actually guide development. They're one of the very best ways to do that in terms of what I've been exposed to. And one of the reasons for that, if you look back at zoning sort of historically, it was based on a concept of straight zoning. That's really all that existed. So you would have industrial here. You would have office here. You'd have retail here. You'd have single family here. You would have multifamily here. You'd have hospitals here. It would be kind of a patchwork is what it's referred to, a patchwork approach to zoning. That's not all entirely bad. I mean, we don't want a major industrial facility right in the middle of a residential facility. But at the same time, there are certain types of uses that are different that if thoughtfully integrated can make for a better development. And that's why PDs or PUDs have become increasingly popular in the land planning world. The way just to think about that in one way is some people don't want to get up into their car when they want to go visit their grandmother at the nursing home. They actually want to walk. Some people want to walk to the coffee shop. Not so much this one, but sometimes you want to walk to work. Some of these uses you don't want to get up in your car and drive to. So you're finding increasingly that planned developments are a very effective way to create a development that works for those sorts of compatible uses. The other real benefit of this, and this is a benefit to you as the leaders of this community, is that it avoids surprises. That's the other reason that people like development leaders like PUDs, because you get to see the plans in advance. You get to see the plans in advance of the actual development going forward. It's presented to you just like it is tonight. After multiple meetings that we talked about, after going to the Planning Commission, we come before you and say, this is what we want to do. And that's not the case with straight zoning. With straight zoning, we come in and we say, let's give an example, we want this to be zoned some category of residential. We don't have to show you how many lots we're going to put in. We don't have to show you how it's going to be situated. That's not part of straight zoning. As long as, when you have straight zoning, as long as you meet the objective criteria for that zoning, meaning setback requirements, you get the utilities in, we can basically build whatever we want that meets that objective criteria. In the land planning world, the problem with that is it's cool to see the way the roadways are going to go in, right? The way the roadways are going to go in are going to add something to how this is going to look. You don't just want to, it's straight zoning, we can develop one piece at one time with 2 lots and then develop 2 more at another time. You don't come in and say, this is our entire development. This is where we're going to have green space. This is where we're going to have retail. This is how this development is going to be laid out. So what it helps do for you all is you get a chance to see it before the development moves forward. So that's another reason PD has become very popular. Now, what I will say to my client's benefit is not all developers like to do this. They don't like to lay it all out here in front. It costs a ton of money. That's a lot of front-end dollars that are being put in before you even know that you can do anything. So a lot of developers don't like to do that, and you're now beholden to that. So there's a lot of reasons they don't, but with my client, we felt it made sense. We felt it was in the best interest of West Milton, and we know this is a new thing for West Milton. This is different than something you've done before, so we wanted to go through the PD process. So that's the first thing that's really been good and rewarding about being a part of this, is it's an early stage PD that I don't think you guys have done a lot, and I hand it to your staff for taking that on. The second piece of this development that's been just qualitatively really well done is that it's been a simultaneous development, a simultaneous planning approach, as opposed to a linear planning approach. And what I mean by that is oftentimes what developers do is they just get their zoning in place because they want to know it's there before they've done anything else. Why do anything else? That means they don't go out and find users. It means they don't do real concrete infrastructure planning. They don't do financing planning. They don't want to incur that time and expense until the zoning is in place. And what we've done here in this case, we are very far along in our planning. In fact, it's been a long time since I've been involved in a development that has been this far along in the planning stage prior to rezoning even having taken place. So we've been moving forward with this in a simultaneous path. What that means is we already have LOIs in place. We've been reaching out to lots of end users who we don't have LOIs in place with, but we've got a dialogue going with them. We've got a detailed plan for our infrastructure in place in terms of how we're going to finance it. That's what the TIF is all about. So we've spent a whole lot of time coming up with how that's going to be done, and as we've spoken before, at no cost to the village. We've also gone real far into our design planning as part of the PD. We've taken it as far as we possibly can without rezoning being in place. And that, I want to say, is a credit to my client for having gone through that, but also to to you all for having worked through at this stage. Now, we can't finalize everything. You can't finalize your design plans without having the actual plan in place. You just can't really do that. No one's going to sign a binding contract for unzoned property. So there's some things we can't do, but we've taken it as far as we can. And that, again, has been a very cooperative approach. So with that background on how we've gotten here in terms of the PD, I'd like to give a little bit of a presentation about what we envision, what it is we're looking to do as far as this development goes. So the Village of West Milton has an opportunity that is sure to improve the quality of life in your community, and this is going to happen in many different ways. We'll be providing diverse housing options. We'll be attracting new, not recirculating, but attracting new tax base. It'll include a tax base based on retail businesses, based on medical services, based on senior care facility, and new residents that didn't previously exist. And there's going to be additional amenities that are going to be a part of this development. There's going to be walking paths, there's going to be recreational spaces, green spaces. There will be senior activities as part of the Randall side of the development, and certainly more will evolve as the project moves forward. But that's how this is going to proceed. These are the real translations of what's going to happen as a result of all these efforts. Our vision on this, what our goal is to build on your hometown. We want it to be built on the lifestyle that already exists in West Milton. We want to build upon that. That's part of what our vision is. Okay, next slide. I'm going to add a little bit to that now. When you look at a map of West Milton, it's not too far from Dayton. It's not too far from Tip City, and it does have very good roadway access. But it's also its own unique community. So these amenities, what it's near is important because that provides the base for some of what we're looking to do. But what our vision is, what our plan is to build upon what you already have. This layout shows a little bit of tangibly what we're looking to do here in terms of there's going to be the Randall residence, which are the buildings up to the left, the residential developments in the bottom right, medical facility up to the north. It's kind of hard to see what they are, but that's just a general snapshot of what it means to be an integrated development. You have compatible uses that are together. Next slide. There's Randall residence, there's Ryan. It's hard to read, but that's the medical location. And then that's where the retail will be. So I think you guys probably have some sense of that, but it's still useful to visualize it and understand that from a development standpoint, we've thought through a whole lot how these uses will integrate, where they're situated. It just doesn't happen. It takes a lot of planning. Here's just a brief look at West Milton's demographics and how they relate to the residential product that we're talking about. You've got an average household income of $42,000. You have average home sale prices of $102,000. What we're looking to bring in is homes with an average price of $180,000, which, based on past experience, how the industry works, generally looks at about a $75,000 household income. There's always intangibles. I mean, mom gives you a bunch of money, there's stuff like that. But when you look at it from a historical average, that's about what most people would be making to live in a $180,000 home. So we believe the residential development, which I know is a lot that you guys have thought about, will positively supplement your community, both in terms of attracting new residents from some of those map areas that we were looking at, but also in terms of economics, that we'll be bringing in people that we hope will add to the economics of your community. As we've shown previously, this will incorporate green space. We're going to make sure there's water views because you have the beautiful natural amenity running through your property. And I want to talk a little bit about Randall Residences. You can see up there we're planning independent living with 80 units. We're going to have assisted care. There's going to be memory care. And this is a little more important than I think is sometimes thought of when we look at what we're trying to develop in here. Why we have worked so closely to bring Randall into this development is because there used to be a thought that the aging population likes isolation. They don't want noise. They kind of want to be set off somewhere where no one can bug them. It's safer, that sort of thing. Well, that's not really the way it's planned out. Maybe there's some, but overall, it's shown that an aging population doesn't want to be isolated. They actually want, like a lot of people, to see people of different age groups. It's uplifting and positive to go for a walk and see children and to see families around. So in developments that I've been involved with, including this one, there's an increasing effort to integrate the aging population with the population that is younger. It's seen as good for quality of life on both sides, meaning if you, and this is showing to increasingly happen, people have a lot of guilt or concern not being near their parents or their grandparents or loved ones. So what you start seeing is people buying homes and trying to place their loved ones nearby. That's good for both generations. So that's one of the visions that we have here, is to bring a high quality development, Randall Residences, so that it can integrate with the community. The other thing, and I don't mean to sound like I'm not caring about the very positive side of it that I just talked about, it is also very good economically, because the aging demographic has a lot of resources. And so it's a positive demographic to bring into your community from a purely economic standpoint. Next slide. We've already discussed before with Ryan Homes, 133 sites, walking and hiking trails, 3 phases of development. The other one I want to talk about is the medical use that we're looking to bring in here. It's nice. West Milton is actually very fortunate to have very good hospitals within driving distance. But when what is shown in a lot of different analyses of when people avail themselves to medical care, there's the convenience factor. And when you put an ambulatory type facility or a medical office in proximity to people that they can go to in 2 or 3 minutes, they don't have the tendency to say, I'll just let that go. I don't really want to deal with going to the hospital. I might have to wait a long period of time. So that's one of the reasons that you'll see communities looking to attract ambulatory type facilities, medical facilities, where they weren't before, so that your population will be more inclined to avail themselves to the wonderful medicine that we have and sometimes goes untapped. So we're really excited about that piece of the development. And then we're looking to add quality retail. We want it to be convenient both for the new people who can walk to it, like I said before, but also we think that it opens up some retail opportunities that are very attractive to lots of people, but you do see young people wanting new retail. That's just something that you see when you talk about people moving to communities. Younger folks want to see certain types of retail, and so that's what we're hoping to attract as well. Okay, so with that overview, I'd like to ask Jeff Putoff to present the PD plan. What I did was try to give you an overview of the process, some of the legalities behind the way we approach this. Jeff now is going to get into the specifics of the actual plan that we're presenting.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Ben. As Mr. Reed said, my name is Jeff Putoff. I'm a professional engineer with Choice One Engineering, and we're the consultant representing the developer on this particular project. And just wanted to give a brief overview of kind of the boring part of the development. So the technical engineering part of it. Mr. Reed always gets to talk about the exciting part. But since I'm the boring engineer, I'll go through this. You didn't need to laugh at that, Mr. Klein. I'll go through that. So very similar picture to what you saw up on the screen in Mr. Reed's presentation. Single family here, kind of in the southeast corner along Iddings. Retail here at the corner of Iddings and 571, and then the senior living here, medical office in this area. So from an engineering traffic standpoint, we'll have a new main entrance traffic signal. We'll go into a traffic circle that will then fan the users and residential folks out into the subdivision itself. We'll have really very limited driveway access on 571 to keep the folks coming in and out of West Milton without traffic needing to be avoided as they enter the subdivision. As I said, we'll have traffic signal at the main entrance. It'll be a boulevard feature with lots of landscaping. And then we'll have a secondary residential outlet on the Iddings Road down here in the southeast corner as we finish the subdivision out. The streets themselves kind of come together at the main entrance, as I said, with some commercial, medical, and senior living coming in these streets, and then the residential features with cul-de-sacs out in the southeast district. Next, I wanted to talk about the zoning. We talked about the zoning itself several times, but the PD zoning is the residential zoning. That's a majority of the property, almost 85 acres, which encompasses a single family and the senior living portion of the property. And then a little over 12 acres, which is the PD2 zoning, which encompasses the retail and the medical up here along 571. And then my last slide, I wanted to just talk about how utilities will be served. The forefathers in the community have brought water and sewer across the bridge on 571 already for us. So the water and sewer will be extended along 571 and then extend out into the property to serve the communities. The storm sewer will be collected throughout the property, will be treated in various stormwater quality basins and detention basins before it's then outletted into Stillwater River. And then, of course, the dry utilities, the gas, telephone, cable, electric, all that stuff will also be serviced from 571 and Iddings Road. So with that, I'll turn it back over to David and let him finish the presentation from there.
The last part, I'm just going to lead into making Mark available to answer residential-related questions, and then obviously we're all here to answer whatever questions you might have. But I just want to confirm that since the last time I was here, we've looked more into the square footage requirements for the homes that we're going to have in the CCRs, and as well as the standards that are going to be required. And based on the size of the homes that we're looking at here, the minimum size requirements, and then even more importantly, based on the track record already shown of what Ryan builds in that square footage category, we as the developer, who by the way would have the most exposure if we didn't reach these numbers, are very satisfied that those will support a $180,000 average. So from our perspective, it's based on track records, looking at other developments that have been done by Ryan. It's based on minimum square footage and the standards we'll have in our CCRs. But I thought you might have more specific questions for Mark Locke with Ryan Holmes, if you'd like.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I'll answer any questions that you might have. David did point out, as far as the $180,000 average, we're very comfortable with that. They wanted me to look at similar communities that offer similar price points. The product offering that we're planning for Stillwater Crossing, we offer the exact product offering in another community, one called Sterling Green in Xenia, Ohio. I went back and looked at the numbers for Xenia, Ohio, average square footage and then average sales price. On average, the average square footage is between 1,900 and 2,000 square feet, and the average sales price is about 196,000. Now it's a little bit higher because we offer basements in Xenia. As you know, their rock is pretty close to the surface here in West Milton, so we'll be only building on slab here. So we're very comfortable in that number that David had just mentioned. And I'll answer any questions that you have specifically about the product offering, what our demographics, what our marketing has shown, and the opportunity for West Milton for single-family residential. Yes.
Question, since David mentioned that you reviewed and looked at the square footage as a minimum, what is the minimum and maximum? You said what it was, 1,900 to 2,000 out there. Is that the minimum and maximum that you're looking at for this community?
That would be an average. We will go from a ranch-style home, which would be the smallest square footage, right at about 1,300 square feet, all the way up to a 2,200 square foot, 4-bedroom that can be converted into a 5th bedroom home. So that 1,300 ranch up to a 2,200 square foot. We found in our Xenia community, there's just a little over a 1,900 square foot home and then the 2,200 square foot home. Those are the most popular because you get more bang for the buck, so to speak. Bigger house.
Okay. And the average then price with the 1,300 to the 2,200 is what to what, as far as the minimum to maximum? Like if the minimum is 170, maximum, what are you looking at
from
as
a
far as
price
the
point,
minimum?
from an advertising price point?
Right.
We'll probably, and we haven't finalized negotiations, we have a signed letter of intent with the developer, but until all the costing comes in and we know specifically what our lot pricing is going to be, we estimate that we'll probably start around in the 160s, and that would be advertising, actually not the ranch, but the 1,440 square foot home.
Okay. And it would go up to what would be the
About 220,000, and that would be the base price of those homes.
Okay.
Will the customer be allowed to upgrade then, or how's that work? Can you explain?
With that particular house, yeah, they do have some options as far as upgrades in the house. These homes are what I don't want to call it turnkey, but in essence it is turnkey. They're designed, they include a washer and dryer. They include the refrigerator. They include the garage door. They include, basically, they're move-in ready in essence. You don't have to go out to Home Depot or wherever and get new washer and dryer or new refrigerator. It comes with the house. And there are other options that owner can choose as far as where to put, ceiling rough ends for fans and stuff like that.
So you're estimating about 100 per square foot?
That's in a nutshell, about $100 per square foot. Now, you take that ranch, there's no way any builder anywhere can build a ranch at $100 a square foot. It's just impossible because a ranch has got a bigger footprint than building vertically. So we'll average anywhere from really pushing that $130 to $145 a square foot down to close to $92, $93 per square foot. But on average, with the square footages, we're right at about $100 a square foot. And that's pretty consistent along this product lineup, across the board.
Now, I know the rock, it doesn't appear that there's gonna be great lots for basements, but if somebody wanted to pay the added cost to have it done, is that something that Ryan Holmes would do?
That's something once we get further into the engineering, because we're gonna have to place the sewer at a depth where it will allow it to flow properly, so that because of that rock, those utilities might not be deep enough to do that. If someone wants to pay to have a basement blasted, we could consider doing that. We do build these on basements. We build them in xenon basements, and do some kind of an injector pump if in fact the public utility, the sewer, isn't at a depth that would allow for gravity flow. Yeah, we would.
So if somebody just had to have it,
If someone,
you guys can build it?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
The 1,300 square foot ranch, this is basically gonna be what, a 2-3 bedroom?
Yeah, that particular house is it's actually a 3-bedroom home, with a kitchen, family room wide open, with the 3 bedrooms, and then, a closet in the entryway and a pantry and stuff like that. But yeah, 3-bedroom home.
Right. Because when this was originally being pitched, the main thing was is that West Milton didn't have a lot of 4 and 5 bedroom houses, and
Right.
I mean, we've got a lot of places where we can already build the 3-bedroom ranches. So I mean, it really doesn't fit with, I don't know, what we were being sold, in my opinion, and only my opinion, what
Right.
we were being sold at the beginning, and to to now, it's continued to fall. We've looked at the beginning, it was 240,000, 215,000, and now we're looking at 130,000, and it's kind of concerning because I mean, when I seen this in my head, there was a different vision than what's really coming to fruit, and I know that you guys have run the numbers, and everything looks good, but it really doesn't really fit the way I expected what we were going to get.
Sure. And I wasn't a part of those discussions. That's news to me. Of the 5 particular products that we're offering, 4 of the 5 are 2-story homes. We typically offer a ranch as one of our products in the product lineup because some people want a first floor owner's suite. They don't want to have to go up steps.
No, I completely understand that.
So to create a situation where you're not serving what the market wants would be counterproductive for us as a builder and for the developer and the city. We want to offer what the market demands. Now, if all of a sudden the market comes in and no one buys that ranch, we're silly to offer. Why are we wasting our time offering something the market doesn't want? And maybe we introduce another product. But we're going to go with those 5, and one of those 5 does include a 3-bedroom ranch home.
So I feel a little misled from the last meeting. And maybe I misunderstood. I thought that we were going to be able to see the homes and kind of talk about what we wanted or what we did not want, and that maybe we would be able to have the final okay. Did I hear that? Maybe not. I don't know. But I just want to look at the home and say, yes, I like those. I think those will sell well here. I'm also just a little concerned about, I don't know, I like Ryan Homes, and you build beautiful homes.
Right.
But I really just want to be able to see what it is we're building up there. You could have a ranch as a great home. I mean, you can have a 1,300 square foot ranch, and you could have a 200,000, foot square ranch. They're
Right.
great homes. I'm just wondering what's it gonna look like? Are we able to see that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, if that's, it's been known, that we're I don't think it's been secret, we're the builder in the community.
No,
It's been that
yes.
way for several months, if not almost 6 to 8 months at least. And we do have communities where these homes could have been toured, yes.
Mark, a few council members here went and toured a product line.
Correct.
That was the Sterling Sterling
Correct.
Green and Xenia.
That
was the.
that's a community I
that's
was
the community
referencing
that-
as
that
the,
we're looking at right
the-
now, is that?
for lack of a better term, the case study that's allowing me to say, yeah, that 180, we're very confident that we'll be able to achieve.
And so, part of that tour, we received some printed materials, copies of the pictures of the homes. Are those still accurate to what you guys are looking at?
They are exactly, those have not changed whatsoever, nor the home that some of you toured and went and saw. That is exactly what is being contemplated to be built in Stillwater Crossing.
Yeah. One other question for you. With Sterling Green, do you have a rough idea? I know that you said the 1900 to 2000 is the most popular. Do you have a rough idea of how many ranches are in that community?
Yeah, let me see if I put that in here, because I did it to do my average, and I don't. What I looked at is our current backlog, and I think it was, I'm going to do this off of memory, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty accurate. We've got 20 homes that we've sold in our backlog. That's what I looked at, is what is our most current sales in that community, which is current as of the last 4 months. So we've sold about 20 homes in 4 months, so about four or five a month in Xenia. 3 of those were the ranch home. I think 2 was the 1,400 square foot. The remainder were the 1,900 and the 2,200, with the largest number of the homes being built being the 2,200 square foot home. And I don't know what that number, that 2,200 and that 1,900 were pretty close, but the 2,200 was the most chosen home that was being built in that particular community that you guys saw.
And that 2,200 square foot, that's a 4-bedroom home?
It's a 4-bedroom with a loft, can be converted to a 5-bedroom home.
About how many homes are in this Xenia community, or planned for?
It's planned for, it was an existing community where homes were built over the last 15, 20 years. We went in and finished a couple sections that had paved lots available, and then there's 162 lots that we're currently developing in. We, Ryan Homes, will build about 192 homes in the community. Total in the community, there's probably 300 or 400 homes total in the community. But we'll, go ahead.
I'll let you finish.
No, I just say we'll build about 200 of those.
Now, it was an existing development that had started years ago. What kind of existing homes were already in that development that you guys are adding the 192 homes to?
Very similar to what we're currently doing now. It was a community that was developed and owned. The market turned pretty substantially 06, 07. A lot of communities went dormant. Builders left the market, went out of business. In 07, 08, 09, we went into several communities throughout Greater Dayton and finished up existing sections. And if there was opportunity on adjoining property or sections within that community that were not developed, we built in those sections also.
How did Ryan Holmes weather the storm of the real estate? Just out of curiosity.
We did actually relatively well from the standpoint of the way our business is structured. We did 2 large acquisitions in 2008 of builders that were either leaving the market or were struggling to survive in the market, to the point where we had pretty close to a 60% market share. So 6 of every 10 homes being built in Greater Dayton we were building back in 08, 09. Right now we've got about a 42% market share. So 4 out of every 10 homes, new construction, that are being built, and that's the Dayton division. That's everything north of 122 in Warren County, all the way up into Tip, Troy, and West Milton now, and then into Greene and Champaign County.
Oh, kind of ask. Sorry, I'm kind of ask what Sarah and Scott were talking about. I think when this started, I even remember being told that a market study had been done in West Milton's underserved residential need was for certain size homes. Was there a market study done for West Milton? Has Ryan Homes done something of that nature, or is that?
But by nature of looking in, when you say a market study of yes, we have studied the market. Is there a no, what we look at resale. What's the resale market? What's permits? How many permits were pulled in this geographic area? Pulling those demographics, we get an idea of how far people are willing to travel to move. What's the mobility rate of a demographic 25 to 45? We take a look at that and realize pretty quickly in looking at those matrices that this area, West Milton, is very underserved residentially. You have a very large percentage of your current residential stock that's at a price point that people that want to stay or remain in West Milton, that want to buy new construction, what are their options? There really isn't a lot of options to take that next step. And that's, someone was saying, you know, price points. We want to be sensitive to the price points of being able to sell to the people that live in your community. You know, I could come in and offer a $400,000 house, but the percentage of your community, or a lot of communities in Greater Dayton, that's not the next step for that buyer. So we're trying to hit a price point that allows not only the people that currently live here that want to build new, but also in surrounding communities to come into West Milton, to be able to afford to come and live in West Milton.
They gave some statistics on the average income needed for a house of a certain price. Since you guys market some of the financing too? Yeah, I think that's one of the things, and someone asked, how did we do it during the downturn? We're pretty much soup to nuts. We do everything from the initial sales, we do the mortgage, we do the construction financing. That's what really hurt a lot of builders when the market turned. They couldn't get construction financing. So you'd have to have a buyer that was willing to put down 50, 75, 80% deposit on the total cost of construction of the house, and most people can't do that. So that's why we weather. But no, we're soup to nuts. The mortgage, the title, the whole from A to Z. And that's really good for the customer because we can hold their hand through every aspect. We're not saying, okay, we're done with you now, go over here and talk with these people. It's seamless for those customers. So did you find those numbers pretty consistent for the income needed for $180,000? I'm not a mortgage guy, so I didn't prepare that slide per se, and sure. And David did point out there's a lot of things that go into whether you qualify for a home or not, and your credit score and all that kind of stuff. I will say that the average sales price of homes in West Milton, that is very consistent with the information that we had gathered in our market data.
And so and I understand it's a market-driven system, but as far as setting those home designs and styles, that's coming from you guys or from the developer? I mean, who's starting the process of what there is to offer in the price points? That really is something that collectively we decide together. Okay. From the standpoint, they want to maintain the integrity of the community. We have to keep the integrity of the community because we're going to make representations to that first customer that purchases. Sure. We're going to make those representations. So we've got to make sure that those are upheld for the duration of, the community. So the HOA docs, I think, and David had alluded to those. Those are kind of driven by both the developer and the builder. Typically, though, it's the builder that wants them to be a lot more detailed, more specific, just from the standpoint we're making those representations to those customers and need those to be upheld and not sell to someone and have them go do something that's, well, because it wasn't in the document, I thought I was able to do this. So we typically like to see an HOA document that's like this because we cover every base. We've seen it all, and we like to cover it so that the customer buying home from us knows ultimately what they can expect in that community. Matt, this might be more for you. Can we, it was my understanding that we can't enforce neighborhood covenants or HOA contracts, so is that correct?
That's correct. We enforce zoning,
Right.
but we do not have the ability, in the Stonemont, there's some covenants on the deeds, but we do not have that authority or power to do that, and they do not happen to have a HOA, so that's why we're requiring and wanting an HOA at Stillwater Crossing.
That will be a way for us, well, it's still not really us enforcing it.
No, but if you've ever I've lived in several HOAs.
I'll be
and
enforcing it.
It's a lot harder, tighter than living in
Municipal
any
zoning.
village or city.
Okay. And it was something I'd thought of after our last meeting because the developer, and you guys had mentioned that you would be, and obviously looking for some strict rules to keep everything looking just right. I kind of remembered after the meeting, though, that we don't have a way to enforce that, and so that comfort of
Right.
us being protected kind of went
And
out
that
the window.
document will be recorded. It will
Okay.
be referenced on the deeds that these people get when they purchase their homes. It'll be referenced on the record plan when it is ultimately recorded. So this is a document that it's not a document that's written and tucked away and put in a file. It is of record and will be recorded with the Miami County Recorder.
If you don't mind, I've lived in a couple HOAs. It's a lot more strict than even our zoning code. Especially, I'm more familiar with living in Mason, where there are HOAs in nearly every neighborhood. Some of them dictate as to the detail of what kind of mailbox, the color of the roof, the color of the shutter. I mean, it can get to that detail. An HOA's short for a homeowners association. When you sign to buy a home in an HOA, you're signing a contract that says you will follow those rules. They have their own board, their own governing body, and typically, when I lived in Mason, it was, I think it was, back in the day, it was almost $200 a month was a fee or something like that. I
Yeah,
forget
there'll be
now.
an
It's-
annual assessment that will be for insurance for the open spaces, to maintain the open spaces, for mailings. There's annual meetings, a board is established that will be controlled by the developer.
Let me give you an example. I believe, this is what I've been told, again, we don't enforce covenants or we have no power to do that. Our zoning code allows you to have an accessory building. Most of us, a backyard shed for your lawnmower. I'm just giving an example. A couple of the HOAs I lived in, you weren't allowed to. So it's a lot more strict than if you live here and I'm not sure, but I was told that you're not allowed, but there are several sheds because when you come to us, we don't have the authority to enforce those deed restrictions, and HOA does.
Just curious, in the community that some of us toured in Xenia, what is the average homeowners association fee for those properties?
It's $350 a year.
$350 a year.
I said month, I'm sorry, I meant a year.
Yeah, that'd be pretty expensive.
Yeah, it'd be pretty expensive.
If it included lawn maintenance and snow removal, that'd be about right, but no, it's about $350 a year.
Okay.
We haven't gotten quite to that far, or to that level, because some of the amenity and open space is shared open space between the commercial and medical. So, we need to decide there's probably gonna be a master association that handles that, and then a sub-association that would be just for our portion of the residential. But I think that 350 number is a pretty good estimate as based on what it is in Sterling Green.
I want to ask the two ends of the spectrum. If the first 25 people come to you that want to build a house and tour and say they want something much larger, and you're offering these 5 houses, would you expand the offering or offer something that's offered in another development to meet that need?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're going to be contracting with the developer to purchase, in essence, finished lots. We're just a home builder.
Okay. And then conversely, if you guys struggle to sell them, and the only thing going is 1,300 square foot ranches, will you guys go smaller than that if?
I can, without a doubt, say we will not go smaller.
You guys don't have a product smaller than that?
No, because you get to a point where you get into that 800, 900, 1,000, 11, 1,200 square foot. That's something totally different that we don't do, and it really gets into the prefab, the manufactured housing market, which that's not what we're doing. So we'll definitely not go smaller. But the point I was trying to make is, since we're only the home builder, we have to sell homes. We're going to make a commitment to that developer and make a substantial investment and commitment to that developer. So if we're not selling homes, I can't just go to the developer and say, sorry, we just haven't been selling homes. We have accountability to that developer. We're making commitments that he is then making to his people he's getting financing through, his investors, the city. So we don't have an option of not selling homes. So if we're not serving the market, it won't take 4 or 5 months to figure it out. I mean, we look at stuff on a weekly, monthly basis. Are we capturing 100% of the market potential that we can? So if we get people coming in saying, gee, I really wish I could have a 3,000 square foot house, that's something we need to definitely look at and consider. And keep in mind, staying in a price point that makes sense. You know, if we've got one person that comes in and says, you know, I can afford a $400,000 house and I want a 3,200 square foot house, we're not going to change product up for one customer. But if it's something that is consistent or continual, 100%, and we do it in every community that we're in. If you look at our product lineup, it changes from time to time based on market conditions.
So, we're looking at a phased development. So, if you found through the first year of sales that people are wanting something more substantial than what's on the plate, that's something you guys would. I would think as a business person, you want to sell the biggest, nicest house you can sell.
Well,
but,
I typically
but I want to know
say,
what
but I would rather sell a bunch
is.
of $250,000 houses than I would $150,000 houses. And it's just the economics of being in the building business. Yeah, I'd rather sell the more expensive homes.
Have you ever had any developments in the Miami County area that you guys didn't complete or didn't?
No, as a matter of fact, we are currently in Miami County. We're currently in a community in Troy, Ohio. We're in a community in Tip City, Ohio, and it's Miami County, but most people don't consider it Miami County. It's in Huber Heights. It's a property that was annexed called Carriage Trails. That's a community we offer 5 different product lineups and sell just under 100 homes a year out of that one community. Just north of 70.
I want to apologize if I came off harsh. I get a little excited up here. So.
You know what? That's
sorry.
your job as a council person, to be honest with you.
Well, it's not my personality. So
don't apologize for doing what the citizens elected you to do.
I'm not. So, well, here is my question, and it kind of goes along with Dayon's. Let's say someone picks one of your designs, but they would like to add some masonry. Can they do that to make something extra special or not?
In this particular community, we are not going to that would not be an option that those buyers would be able to choose.
Okay.
Masonry at all, or just?
At all.
I think that was one of my, I don't know, not masonry, but just concern is that I really wanted to offer our community, something extra special. And, we don't have that kind of stuff here in town. But I don't know. And I know with that style of house, you can't get that. So.
Yeah, there's an element of a craftsman type feel, and that's what we call them, a craftsman style feel.
Yes.
That really, that's not the main component of that architecture. It's vertical board and batten. It's what we call webbing in the eaves. It's different. It just is different.
And you can't get that type of house for this amount of money,
That's
right?
what,
That's what you're saying.
That's what we're selling, yes.
Okay. How much are those types of homes, the craftsman style homes?
It's the pricing we've been talking, that's what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
We're offering that craftsman style home in this community.
So that's the architectural detail.
That's
And-
correct,
and-
yes, that is
Because I
correct.
think some of the pictures we've been shown have been very flat-faced front, with, I mean, no porches, no eaves, that was the handouts we
Yeah,
saw.
yeah.
I don't think any of us were.
It would be really nice
We're
to
willing to
just
sell and move yet,
see
and I think
more.
that's kind of where some of these questions are coming from.
Right.
So,
You've mentioned open spaces and the management of those. I'm sorry, did I cut?
no, I'm finished. Thanks.
And the management of those open spaces. Who owns the open spaces?
Again, we're just the home builder. We're buying finished lots from the developer. The developer is 100% in control and in charge of the homeowners association and the grounds within the community. I don't own anything in the community. I don't own open space, the entryway. Typically what is done is any open space that is created in a community would be deeded to the homeowners association. So they would be the owner of record with the county of that particular. That would be more of a question for the developer, if that is what he intends on doing. While we can tell him that that's our wishes, it's ultimately the developer's decision, but 99 out of 100 times, all open space is deeded basically to the homeowners association that is responsible for managing them for tax purposes.
This may be more of a question for Matt, but since we're talking about green spaces, and typically they'll be deeded to the HOA. Will the city be responsible for any of the maintenance of cutting the grass, or is that, okay?
Yeah, typically it's not, but that would be again, between the developer and whatever. We're just the home builder, lot purchaser.
Any other questions from anyone on council?
What, the name of the development again for the people at home, if they want to log on and look at that Ryan Home development of similar style?
Stillwater Crossing.
Stillwater.
Or, excuse me.
They stole our name.
It's called Sterling Green.
Sterling Green in
Yeah.
Xenia.
Yeah, in Xenia, Ohio.
Ryan Homes.
Yeah.
Since only a few of us had an opportunity to go out that day and take a look at those homes,
Right.
if we wanted to say have another field trip type of deal out there to meet with you.
Yeah, and it might even be something nice if anyone's interested. We also have a site, it's a little bit further, but it's worth the drive. It's called Amelia Park. It's in eastern Cincinnati. They've actually got two model homes built there. They've got the ranch model home and then the 2,200 square foot home. So it would give those of you that have seen the 1918 and the 1640 to see two of the other three that you didn't see. And I would welcome that. I'll make my schedule available for anyone that wants to take a tour. And we can do it in Xenia or we can go down to Amelia Park.
So is that in Amelia? Is that
It's in the city of Amelia.
Oh, okay. Because I live close to there, so I
Yeah.
know where you're talking
Yes, in
about.
Amelia.
Okay.
And in that community, I don't know what the average price is, but we're selling on average 6, 7 a month in that community.
Wow.
I guess I'll just ask that again. What is your target for West Milton?
We'll make a commitment to the developer, and then we have a corporate mandate that is somewhat different than that. So I'll give you corporately what they are looking for us to do is anywhere between 30 and 40 units per year in the community. We're going to do probably close to 55 or 60 in Xenia this year. That community in Amelia, they've already sold, I think, 38 through the first half of the year. And that's, it's a little bit more than our standard community, but we've sold probably close to 250 homes in Dayton, Ohio in the first half of this year. We're on pace to do 500 homes in Dayton, Ohio this year.
And then you would build a similar type of model home here for folks to tour, and like you had there with the whole setup with the whole turnkey operational.
That's
work into
correct.
that,
We would build, in these communities, sometimes we even build 2 models, and sometimes 2 models and a spec house, or 1 model and 2 what we call white shell houses, which is basically everything except it's not furnished, it's not staged like a model home would be. In that Xenia community, we had done that, but we sold the 2 white houses because we were finishing up that existing section that was already there.
The product line that you're going to be offering in this community, does that have a specific name? So
Yeah, it's called Simply Ryan.
Simply Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That way, and that information would be available on like your
Yeah, we've got our
website or-
Simply, yeah, there's different lines. There's Cornerstone and Renaissance and Simply Ryan. There's a lifestyle product line. We've categorized all of our individual homes into basically one of 5 categories.
Yeah.
And this is out of the Simply Ryan line.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just let me know. I would love to take anyone that was interested on a tour of the homes. And
There we go.
Tom found it.
there you go. There's the 1440, the 1980, or 1918, and the I think an appreciation for, and it may be good, but I know that some of the council did physically go through the model. And I've done it with other municipalities. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be in Amelia in 2 weeks with another jurisdiction up this way. I watch the nonverbal body language as people go through the house, and you almost have to go in and see it, because the reaction typically is, gee, this is only 180,000, you know, what am I missing? Well, you're not missing anything. It's what we're selling them for. So yeah, I would welcome a tour if anyone's interested.
Thank you.
What's the oldest Ryan Homes development if we wanted to tour what we're looking at 20 years down the road?
The oldest, well, this simply, it won't be a 20-year-old
Just
simply.
in general.
The oldest, you can go through stuff that was built back in the 70s and 80s in Moraine, German Village. We did build in Piqua, but that was in 07, 08. I don't know if that's far enough back for you or not.
Could you send us some of that? That's a great question. To see, and I'll just be honest, one of the concerns we get from community members is them telling us that a Ryan home just isn't up to the quality of a custom-built home, and that it won't be, they're basically implying that it won't be standing in 20 years.
What's
So-
that based on? What communities did they look at that they
Th-
said
th-
that?
no, no.
Why don't you ask them, and then they can tell you which communities to go look at.
Well,
It's
we-
not coming from me, but it's a good question that if, much like if I wanted to buy a brand-new car, it'd be nice to see what it's gonna look like in 20 years. Show me your
Sure.
20-year-old car, and if it still runs well, then
Sure.
I might look at your new one.
Yeah,
So if you
that's-
could send us maybe a couple of the neighborhoods that are 20-year-old communities.
All right,
That would be-
even the 10-year-old one
Sure.
in Piqua, I would probably be inclined to.
Because I'd love to send some of the naysayers to that.
Right,
I'll be with you just as much.
yeah.
And-
Yeah, I can certainly do that.
Okay.
And something that I hear a lot of people say, but that when all the houses look the same, and again, why I want to look at something that's 10 years old, because I think one of the things that changes is the individuality that comes out with landscaping, design, time.
Right. Well, and that's something, once we sell a home to a customer, we have no control over that.
Right,
So
but I
you go
think-
into a community and there's no bushes and no trees, because that, you know, I don't want that to reflect on us, because that's not what we do.
But I think that's one of the things that does create a difference in the properties is what people choose to do with that.
Right.
Where they plant trees, how they
Right.
do their landscaping. More in defense of similar houses. And since we don't interview builders on a regular basis, but you tend to talk to municipalities on a regular basis, what kind of questions are we not asking that you typically might get asked? I mean, what are we,
Actually,
what would you share with us that we haven't asked
for
that
you
you think
not
we should know?
talking with, builders, you've done a pretty good job. I think at the end of the day, if what I can get across is we're a home builder, we're a volume home builder, that's no surprise. Are we the custom guy? We're not. That 2,200 square foot custom house, a majority of this market would have difficulty affording that.
Absolutely.
We're trying to create an affordability in your market. There are people that say Ryan Homes, quality's terrible. Oh, it's terrible. I would argue, I think it would be very difficult to maintain a 40% market share when we were building stuff that was inferior. Because the adage, you have a great experience, how many people do you tell?
Right.
1 or 2. You have a negative experience, you tell 20 or 30 people. And people say, oh, well, I got online and it's all Ryan Homes nightmares, Ryan Homes. My question is, what's a great automobile? Lexus. Everyone goes, oh, Lexus, great car. Type in, I hate Lexus. There are people that say they wouldn't drive a Lexus. It's when you're the 3rd largest home builder in the country and build 17,000, 18,000 homes a year. Yeah, we're gonna have some customers that are not satisfied with the product. There could have been some miscommunication with our salesperson. They could have had unrealistic expectations. Maybe that customer didn't understand the contract they were signing and didn't know that their house was gonna be within a half mile of a airport. I don't know. When you build that many homes, you are gonna have people that put stuff out there, and for the most part, it's pretty inaccurate. I've worked for Ryan Homes for 14 years. I've been in the building industry for about 25 years. I come to these meetings and speak very positively about the company I work for. We build a great product. It's of great value, and we serve the market, and it's proven by that 40% market share. If we weren't doing that, we wouldn't be in business. And because the only business we're in is building homes, we have to do it right. So I'll supply you with all the information you want. I'll meet you wherever you want, if that's what it takes to get you comfortable in Ryan Homes. I won't hide anything from you. It is what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There were a few questions that came up that really were more developer. Mark, thanks for responding to some of the developer questions, but I did want to point out a couple things in terms of what we can do and what you can do and what we can't do and what you can't do, because I think that also becomes part of this. I just want to say we have been as much an open book as you possibly can be through this process. And frankly, I've represented developers, and I'm not talking about Ryan here, I'm talking about the developer that is not an open book, where they will come in and show you exactly what you want to see. We go up, it will be gorgeous, it'll be custom, it will be exactly what your eyes want to put your eyes on, but it's not what's going to get built. And guess what? Once it's all done, there's no way for you to enforce whether or not it's a custom home that costs $500,000 or it's a Ryan home that costs $220,000, because you can't enforce the aesthetics of the home or the building standards of the home. There's no methodology which exists that allows you to do that. So what we've tried to do is be absolutely truthful and show you what it is we're going to do. What we have done is show you lot sizes. We've shown layouts. We've shown how much public amenities are going to be in that development. That costs money. We've got to sell these lots. We have to sell these lots in order to make this project work. So we have to have a relationship with Ryan Homes that works for that. What you have as a support that normally doesn't exist is we're the ones who are going, the buck's going to stop with us if we don't support a certain price point. So we as the developer have done a lot of due diligence, and we have also are going to be establishing standards. Ryan wants this too, that supports this price point, because we're the ones where the buck's going to stop, and that's more than normally can be provided or expected from a governmental body. Ultimately, and this is not something that people want to hear, but again, we're trying to be absolutely open about this. You're going to have to look at us and say, will we stand behind this development? Will we do what we're going to do? Because even when this is all done, if Ryan decided they don't want to do anything about, they don't want this project, they decided it's not working for them, you'd be left to us to sue them to try to bring them back. That doesn't really work. That usually doesn't happen. So we're going to have to trust Ryan, even if there's a contract that will set all these standards. You're going to have to know that we want a high standard for this project, and then there's going to have to be some thought that we're going to stand behind it. Ultimately, though, the biggest comfort level is we're the ones who are going to really, really hurt if we can't sustain that price point. Ryan's not going to pay the lot prices from us if that cost were to go down. The other thing I just wanted to touch on is unlike bringing in a series of small builders which can build custom homes, they can't take down 133 lots. That's the single element that's a risk factor on this project, is not moving the lots. That would be the thing that would be the most harmful from an economic standpoint. So I think Mark, with his experience, and by the way, I have never represented Ryan Homes. We've been on the other side of the table on a lot of developments. He beats me up most of the time, but we usually do find a place in the middle where it works. But I will say this for them, is in the numerous developments that I've been on and been involved with, they have always exceeded expectations in terms of takedown. They've always made their financial contributions that we've needed, and they've always gone the extra mile when there's a problem. That's why my client and myself want to use them. So that provides comfort as well. I just thought I needed to respond to a few of those that were really more developer questions.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you can, just real quick.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a couple of things in the presentation, and I'm assuming it's the range of homes that they make, but it was either on the slide or you said that you'll be offering diverse housing options. That's just referring to the spread of what they're offering, the 1,300 to the 2,200 square foot?
There's actually that's part of it, is there's going to be a range, because again, you can't do a development that's all $220,000 homes. So there is the range, and we had worked with Ryan to make sure there was options there, but that's not all that we're talking about. What we're talking about is multifamily for assisted living.
Okay.
We're talking about that there's going to be those sort of transitional homes that then transition into there's independent living quads that are going to be there. So we're more talking about it's cross-generational diverse housing for the continuum of the life of people, from the younger to the transition independent living into the nursing home.
You also mentioned an LOI. I'm not familiar with.
Oh, sorry about that. We've got letters of intent in place with Ryan, with Randall, and we're seeking others. We've actually, which are the biggest land users out there. I was trying to point out that we've been very proactive to get those in place in the front end, so we're moving with a simultaneous project rather than a linear project. Because there's a lot of times people do present PUDs without a single end user mentioned. There isn't even a Ryan to talk to because we haven't decided who the builder is. You know?
Sure. So
we're there. They've signed an LOI. So has Randall.
At what point do you go from a LOI to an actual signed contract after?
As soon as the zoning is finalized, so now we can deliver the use that they need, then we're going to be pursuing turning that into an active contract. It takes a little bit of money again in terms of negotiating the final contract, and so our plan is as soon as the zoning is approved, if we're fortunate to have it approved, then we would proceed with getting those under contract. But the flip side is they're not really interested in finalizing a contract for unzoned property. That's just the practical side of it.
Sure, sure.
And I don't remember hearing the answer to who owns the open spaces in the development?
There's one thing that Matt said that's absolutely certain. No matter how the ownership is done with the open spaces, it's going to be the association that's going to be responsible for those. Initially, the way it'll work is the declarant, the developer, is going to be responsible for the open spaces. That's how it'll start. And then over time, the association will take over that responsibility. Usually the couple ways that it's done is one way is very common is the association. Other times, governmental bodies want to have, because there's public amenities, so they're thinking worst case scenario, I want to be able to get in there, I want to have the right to get in there, and if something is clogged up, storm drainage, that sort of thing, and the association is failing, I want to be able to get in there and do it. So sometimes, and there'll be kind of a choice made, the governmental body wants to take title subject to an agreement that we're still responsible for all the costs. But that would be a discussion process, yeah. And I don't know that we have a strong opinion on it. But those would be the options. Ultimately, it's going to be one or the other.
Is the Randall residence the same, not design and square footage, but is it the same ownership and management as the one being operated in Tip City? Okay. It's been referred to, and I'm assuming that it was, but I've never asked the question directly if it is the same company and management. I've heard such high regards for that facility in Tip City. And
good.
So that's just wanting to make sure those were the
that was an affirmative
same
nod,
people.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Any other questions for either myself on behalf of the developer, Choices Engineering, or Mark at Ryan?
I have one for Jeff real quick.
Okay.
You mentioned in your presentation a traffic light. Has that been confirmed that we need that? To this point, I've been told it was kind of up in the air.
We're still working through with ODOT on that, but
Okay.
so far it looks still positive. But until we go into the final engineering, we won't have that approval. And kind of as David alluded to, until zoning gets a little bit farther along, they're not ready to make commitments to putting a traffic light to nowhere. So,
Sure.
But
That's
so
what
far they're very, very positive.
Okay.
Now, what would the likelihood of being a traffic light there at the Iddings Road crossing too? Would there be double lights or?
Right now, I don't think there's a possibility of that. Who knows what would happen in the future, but I just don't think that's going to offer enough traffic to, that light is more controlled by ODOT because less of the intersection is in West Milton. So they have their requirements, and from an engineering standpoint, I don't feel initially there will be the traffic to need a light there. What happens 20 years from now, I'm not sure.
Jeff, distance-wise, I don't, nothing that is that out distance-wise also, but the thought of dual lights might actually be a conflict.
That's correct. Obviously, Ben brings up a great point. The traffic engineers, which ODOT has some of the best, will analyze that and better be prepared to give that answer once this community's up and going. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have another question. I don't know if you want it now. It's kind of with these guys. I don't know who has the answer. So we're doing a PD1, which is for the residential, but that includes the Randall House and the quads that go with it.
Correct.
And that has to be residential, and I know you touched on it last meeting, but if you could explain that again.
Yeah, there's two things in the zoning, which is PD1 and PD2. Based on our code, PD1 is a residential component.
Okay.
So the senior cottages, people live there. Randall House, and even in the memory care, people are living there. So based on our code, it has to be a PD1.
Okay.
Now, a medical office supply, not supply, I'm sorry, medical office or a bookstore, a coffee shop, a car wash or whatever.
Sure.
Those are business related, so that would have to be what's called a PD2.
Okay.
So those are those two designations. Now, when you look at the TIF, those are different. There's the incentive district TIF, which is the residential, which is the single-family homes only.
Mm-hmm.
But then Randall switches over to being considered, based on TIF law, a commercial property.
Okay.
So I don't want to confuse you, but there's
Right.
we're looking tonight at the zoning, which
Right.
is based on what the use of that property would be.
So we can offer a abatement. Isn't Randall House and the Quads getting the longer-term abatement, even though
Yes, because
it's
they're considered a
residential by
commercial,
zoning?
based on the TIF, they're considered a commercial property. Even though their primary purpose from a zoning code standpoint is residential.
All right, that's a little confusing to me of why then they wouldn't be getting the 8-year abatement that residential would, compared to the 15-year abatement that commercial would. I guess I'm not following how we
I don't want to put them on the
decide.
spot. Caleb could explain a little bit better than I.
So,
I don't know if my question is clear
yeah,
or not.
no, I understand your question. So for real property taxation law, commercial and residential are distinguished by whether or not a property has
Owner
3 or
occupancy.
fewer units in it.
Yeah.
If it's 3 or fewer units, then it is taxed as residential ag.
Okay.
Versus the commercial industrial classification for 4 or greater units. So that's why, we're in these two categories. Your zoning code is completely different than the way that the auditor assesses and taxes property. The TIF and the abatement laws follow the property tax rules, not your zoning code.
Okay.
So the TIF and abatement rules, and specifically your abatement ordinance, will establish the categories of classification for property that will be subject to abatement. So the 4-year abatement versus the longer abatements are based on your specific prior ordinance.
That's what I was trying to get to, how we determine what they are for abatement purposes.
Following that ordinance.
Okay,
So.
thank you. I'm done now.
Okay. All right, at this point of the public hearing, we're gonna open the floor up to the public. So, if you have a question or concern or comment, if you would like to, bring that forward, please step up to the podium, state your name and, your residence, and we'll go from there. Okay. No questions from the community. Okay. All right. At this point, then, that's the end of the public hearing portion,
Yes,
correct, right?
if you would want to, well, there's no one in the audience that wants to speak at all?
Is that the question, or just if you want to speak?
No, if you have a question.
My name's Tony Hughes. I live 174 Hayes Street, West Milton. I think this is the greatest thing that could ever happen to West Milton. I think some of us remember back in the early 50s, mid-50s, somebody wanted to come here and they ended up going to Greenville. Anybody remembers or heard about it was Corning. So I think this would be great for West Milton, and I would like to see it pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
And if anybody from Corning was listening, you can call the city manager.
698-1500, extension 103. You just need to declare the public hearing has been closed.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to declare that the public hearing is closed, and we will continue on with our regular meeting. All right, we have two more ordinances to read, and the first one is CM 17-19. It's an ordinance creating a commercial TIF for Stillwater Crossings. It is 5 pages long. Ms. Brosh.
Mayor, did you want to take a short break for those who didn't want to stay to be allowed to?
Everyone is more than welcome to stay. It's a public meeting. The mayor is absolutely right. The language in the TIF documents are based on Ohio Revised Code language. So you might hear crickets and don't fall asleep. It's very long, and good luck.
We have 5 pages with each ordinance to read, and we have 2 of them, so there's 10 pages total. Okay, Ms. Brosh.
Got some troopers.
Do we want to take a short recess?
You want to take 5 minutes?
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess so folks can use the restroom and come back. Okay.
Just did.
Council, we
Yes.
will reconvene and we'll get ready to get started with CM 17-19 ordinance creating commercial TIF, Stillwater Crossings. Ms. Brosh.
It's an ordinance declaring the improvement to certain parcels within the municipality to be a public purpose, exempting 100% of the value of such improvements from real property taxation for a period of 30 years, requiring owners of parcels for which improvements are declared to be a public purpose to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes during the period of exemption, authorizing the county treasurer to pay a portion of the service payments in lieu of taxes to the Milton Union Exempted Village School District and the Miami Valley Career Technology Center, describing the public infrastructure improvements made or to be made to directly benefit the parcels for which improvements are declared to be a public purpose, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments, and approving related matters.
That's just the title?
That's the title. Whereas Section 5709.40B, Ohio Revised Code, authorizes the legislative authority of a municipal corporation by ordinance to declare the increase in the assessed value of any real property that would first appear on the tax list in duplicate of real and public utility property after the effective date of an ordinance adopted under RC Section 5709.40, were it not for the exemption granted by that ordinance, referred to in this ordinance as in RC Section 5709.40A4 as the improvements, to be a public purpose and exempt from taxation. And whereas the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, referred to as the municipality, intends to exempt 100% of the improvements attributable to new buildings or structures on certain parcels of real property within the municipality, as described more particularly on Exhibit A, attached to and incorporated into this ordinance, referred to as the parcels and each a parcel, for a period of 30 years for each parcel. And whereas pursuant to RC Section 5709.42, the municipality intends to require the owner or owners of each parcel to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes to the treasurer of Miami County, Ohio, referred to as county treasurer, on or before the final dates for payment of real property taxes, and the annual service payments in lieu of taxes are to be charged and collected in the same manner and in the same amount as the real property taxes that would have been charged and payable against the improvements with respect to each parcel if it were not exempt from taxation. And whereas pursuant to RC Section 5709.91 and to a service payment agreement, referred to as the service payment agreement, to be entered into between the municipality and the owner or owners of each parcel, referred to as the owner or owners as appropriate, the municipality intends to require the owner or owners of each parcel to make minimum service payments to the county treasurer on or before the final dates for payment of real property taxes in the minimum amounts set forth in Section 4 of this ordinance and in the service payment agreement. And whereas pursuant to RC Section 5709.43A, this council intends to establish a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund into which service payments in lieu of taxes and minimum service payments distributed to the municipality shall be deposited, and which from the date of this ordinance shall be used as provided in this ordinance. And whereas the municipality intends to cause the county treasurer to pay a portion of the service payments in lieu of taxes to each of the Milton Union Exempted Village School District, referred to as the Milton Union Schools, and the Miami Valley Career and Technology Center, referred to as the Vocational School, in amounts equal to the amount of real property taxes each of the Milton Union Schools and the Vocational School would have received had this ordinance not been adopted. And whereas notice of the proposed adoption of this ordinance has been delivered to the Board of Education of the Milton Union Schools in accordance with RC Section 5709.40D2 and 5709.83. And whereas notice of the proposed adoption of this ordinance has been delivered to the Board of Education of the Vocational School in accordance with RC Section 5709.83. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the Municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, Public Purpose, in accordance with RC Section 5709.40B, the municipality hereby declares that the improvements attributable to the new buildings or structures on the parcels, as such parcels are identified on Exhibit A, attached to and incorporated into this ordinance, subsequent to the effective date of this ordinance, are a public purpose. Section 2, TIF exemption. Pursuant to RC Section 5709.40B, the municipality hereby exempts 100% of the improvements with respect to each parcel from taxation for a period of 30 years, commencing on the first day of the first tax year in which an improvement that is attributable to one or more new buildings or structures on such parcel would have first appeared on the tax list in duplicate of real and public utility property for such parcel were it not for the exemption granted by this ordinance, referred to each as the commencement date. In accordance with RC Section 5709.40G, the exemption granted by this ordinance shall apply to the improvements to each parcel on a parcel-by-parcel basis. The commencement date with respect to the improvements attributable to new buildings or structures on any parcel may occur within a different tax year than the commencement date with respect to the improvements attributable to new buildings or structures on any other parcel, and the improvements attributable to new buildings or structures on each parcel shall have a separate exemption term of 30 years, commencing on its respective commencement date and ending on the date which is 30 years after such date. In no case shall any improvements on any parcel be exempted from taxation for longer than 30 years. Section 3, service payments. Pursuant to RC Section 5709.42, during the period when the exemption granted by this ordinance is in effect for each parcel, the owners of each parcel are hereby required to make and shall make service payments in lieu of taxes with respect to the improvements on each such parcel to the county treasurer on or before the final dates for payment of real property taxes. Each service payment in lieu of taxes shall be charged and collected in the same manner and in the same amount as the real property taxes that would have been charged and payable against the improvements on each parcel, as if it were not exempt from taxation under Section 2 of this ordinance. Section 4, minimum service payments. Pursuant to RC Section 5709.91 and the service payment agreement, during the period when the exemption granted by this ordinance is in effect for each parcel, the owner or owners of each parcel are hereby required to make and shall make minimum service payments with respect to the improvements on each such parcel to the county treasurer on or before the final dates for payment of real property taxes. Each minimum service payment shall be in the amount of the difference, if any, between the service payments in lieu of taxes to be collected on any date for payment of real property taxes and the sum of the principal of interest and premium, if any, on, and administrative fees and expenses due, if any, collectively referred to as the debt service payments. With respect to revenue bonds, as the same may be refunded or reissued from time to time in accordance with their terms or otherwise, referred to as the authority bonds, to be issued at rates, terms, and principal amounts as are approved by the municipality by one or more Ohio port authorities, referred to whether collectively or individually as the authority, to pay the costs of the public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 7 of this ordinance. Any late payments of service payments in lieu of taxes or minimum service payments shall be subject to penalty and bear interest at the then current rate established under RC Sections 323.121B1 and 5703.47, as the same may be amended from time to time, or any successor provisions as the same may be amended from time to time, referred to as penalties and interest. The owner shall make any other payments in respect of each parcel which are received by the county treasurer in connection with the reduction required by RC Section 319.302, as the same may be amended from time to time, or any successor provisions as the same may be amended from time to time, referred to as the property tax rollback payments, which together with the service payments in lieu of taxes, the minimum service payments, and the penalties and interest are collectively referred to in this ordinance as the service payments. The service payments shall be allocated and distributed under Section 5 of this ordinance. Section 5, distribution of service payments. At the same times and in the same manner as real property tax distributions, the county treasurer shall distribute the service payments with respect to improvements on each parcel in the following order of priority. First, to each of the Milton Union schools and the vocational school in an amount equal to the amount of real property taxes each of the Milton Union schools and the vocational school would have received had this ordinance not been adopted. And second, to the municipality for deposit in the Stillwater Crossing Commercial TIF Fund defined and established in Section 6 of this ordinance. The municipality shall distribute the service payments in the Stillwater Crossing Commercial TIF Fund after each semi-annual settlement of real property taxes and in the following order of priority. First, to pay the costs of the public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 7 of this ordinance by paying service payments to the authority or to the authority's trustee or agent for application by the authority or the authority's trustee or agent to pay the cost of public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 7 of this ordinance, including but not limited to the payment of debt service payments on the authority bonds. Second, to pay the costs of public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 7 of this ordinance by paying or reimbursing the municipality or any other party for the costs of public infrastructure improvements incurred or to be incurred under this ordinance. And third, if service payments remain in the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District Fund used by the municipality for any lawful purpose. I can keep going, it's okay. Section 6, Stillwater Crossing Commercial TIF Fund. This council, under RC Section 5709.43, hereby establishes the Stillwater Crossing Commercial TIF Fund, referred to as the Fund, in the custody of the municipality. The fund shall receive all distributions of service payments required to be made to the municipality pursuant to this ordinance. The service payments received by the municipality shall be deposited into the fund under RC Section 5709.43 and distributed under RC Section 5709.42 in this ordinance. The service payments received by the municipality shall be used solely for the purposes authorized in RC Sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43, and 5709.82, including but not limited to paying the costs of the public infrastructure improvements as defined in Section 7 of this ordinance, and paying debt service payments on the authority bonds or on any other securities issued to acquire or finance the public infrastructure improvements, all in a manner which is consistent with this ordinance. The municipality shall use all service payments received and deposited into the fund as provided in this ordinance. For all purposes of this ordinance, costs of the public infrastructure improvements payable from the fund also shall include the items of costs of permanent improvements described in RC Section 133.15B and incurred for the public infrastructure improvements. The fund shall remain in existence so long as service payments are collected and used under this ordinance. Then the fund shall be dissolved, and any surplus funds remaining in the fund shall be distributed under Section 5 of this ordinance. Section 7, Public Infrastructure Improvements. The municipality hereby designates the public infrastructure improvements described in Exhibit B attached to and incorporated into this ordinance by this reference as the public infrastructure improvements, as that term is defined in RC Section 5709.40A7, which are to be made, or are in the process of being made by or on behalf of the municipality that directly benefit or once made will directly benefit the parcels. Section 8, Service Payment Agreements and Minimum Service Payments. The owner or owners of all or any portion of one or more parcels shall be subject to one or more service payment agreements as provided in RC Section 5709.42 or one or more minimum service payment obligations as provided in RC Section 5709.91 to the extent required by this council in separate legislation of this council authorizing service payments agreements or minimum service payment obligations for projects, including improvements of those owners on those parcels. Section 9, Application for Real Property Tax Exemption and Remission. This council further authorizes and directs the municipal manager, the municipal law director, municipal finance director, or other appropriate officers of the municipality to make such arrangements as are necessary and proper for collection of service payments from owners, to make payment of the service payments to the municipality to be deposited into the fund, to prepare and sign all agreements and instruments as may be necessary to implement this ordinance, including any applications for real property tax exemption and remission, and to take all other actions as may be appropriate to implement this ordinance. RC Section 57.911 shall govern the priority status of the exemptions provided under this ordinance. Section 10, ODSA. Pursuant to RC Section 5709.40I, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to deliver a copy of this ordinance to the Director of the Ohio Development Services Agency, ODSA, within 15 days after its adoption. On or before March 31st of each year that an exemption granted in Section 2 of this ordinance remains in effect, the officer or officers authorized by Section 9 of this ordinance to take actions necessary to implement this ordinance shall prepare and submit to the Director of ODSA the status report required under RC Section 5709.40G. Section 11, Tax Incentive Review Council. The municipality hereby establishes the West Milton Tax Incentive Review Council, the membership of which shall be constituted in accordance with RC Section 5709.85. In accordance with RC Section 5709.85, the West Milton Tax Incentive Review Council shall review annually all exemptions from taxation resulting from the declaration set forth in this ordinance, and any other such matters as may properly come before it, all in accordance with RC Section 5709.85. Section 12, Open Meetings. This council finds and determines that all formal actions of this council and any of its committees concerning and relating to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were in meetings open to the public, all in compliance with the law, including RC Section 121.22. Section 13, this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest time provided by law.
Thank you, Ms. Grosh.
Holy moly.
Can you read that again? No, just kidding. Very good.
As you went through section 2, can a TIF be assessed to, can you have more than one building on a lot? Let's say the commercial, the Randall. Are those quads going to be individual parcels of land for each quad? Or will they be 15 different buildings on one lot? And then, because I think that's what I was following in section 2, where it was, I'm not even gonna try and repeat it, but talking about different timeframes per structure or new building. So is that possible to have multiple buildings on one lot and have different timeframes for that TIF?
It's my understanding it's one building itself. 'Cause
Okay.
it's a quad.
Right.
As far as the TIF goes, I think that's more of a Caleb question. I hate to ask that. He deals with TIFs more than I do.
Okay.
As far as when the commencement date would start. I'm
But
not
like-
sure how they sell those.
But even
So-
like our zoning, will each one of those quads be on a separate lot? Or will all those be on one parcel of land?
We asked that question before, and the way we understood it, the way it was answered was that they'll all be owned by Randall House and will be a part of all the quads. So it would be all as one.
That's
It was the way I remember answered when the question was
That's
asked.
the way I understood it.
Okay, which would make sense for this section too, because then they can have, their clock doesn't start ticking as soon as they complete the first quad. It will actually be for each improvement on that parcel of land.
That's
Not just the parcel of land itself, it's the improvement.
That part I use, yes.
Okay. And I was trying to pick this out within here. So in a normal tax payment situation, if somebody is late on their taxes and there's fees, or maybe even more appropriate for the council, if we are assessing things to someone's taxes for lawn mowing or past due water bills, do those come out separate? I mean, I wasn't able to pick that out in the priority of payment. Are we still gonna get paid? In other words, this fall, we're gonna assess things to people's taxes. If that happens in that development during the TIF period, which it's bound to happen, that somebody's gonna have a past due water bill that we assess to their taxes, where does that come out in priority? I mean, we're not gonna have to
Separate from the TIF.
suffer
Yeah,
up.
separate.
Am I making?
It's separate
sense?
from the TIF. You're just asking about which level of priority it would be?
So it is separate from the TIF?
Yes.
Okay, so that has nothing to do with the TIF or the abatement. If they have an assessment on their taxes, that would get handled by the auditor just like it would in any other situation.
Yes.
Okay, that's why I wasn't able to pick it out of here, because it has nothing to do with it. And what is the difference between a service payment agreement and a minimum service payment? That was in section 8. I guess I wasn't following that. Is there, I understand the service agreement is, or the service payment is what we would call the tax, but it's not actually a tax because the tax is,
Waived.
right. So that's what the service payment is. But it's in here talking about a service payment and a minimum service payment. Why is there a difference?
It was that would be an agreement between the Port Authority that was referring to.
Okay.
Because technically, the Port Authority's the machine, the instrument that's selling the bond. It's
Okay.
It's the go-between. So they'll have an agreement with the owner of the property that there's a minimum service service payment, even though there's a minimum because that land is still blank he still owes some money because what's being called a service payment, the taxes, that parcel hasn't been improved yet.
So that has to do with
But he's still going to owe,
unimproved.
he's still going to owe something on a, there's still going to be a minimum payment due on an
unimproved lot.
unimproved parcel of ground.
Okay.
It's a lot to keep up with. Now you get to read it all again.
Yes, she has to do
Pretty
it again.
much, yes.
Okay, Manager Klein, any other comments that you have in reference to that ordinance?
No.
And that is the first reading. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is CM 17-20, ordinance creating an incentive district TIF, Stillwater Crossings. Ms. Brosh.
All right. It's an ordinance creating the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District within the municipality, declaring the improvements to real property within the incentive district to be a public purpose, exempting 100% of the value of such improvements from real property taxation for a period of 30 years, requiring the owners of parcels for which improvements are declared to be a public purpose to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes during the period of exemption, authorizing the county treasurer to pay a portion of the service payments in lieu of taxes to the Milton Union Exempted Village School District and the Miami Valley Career Technology Center, describing the public infrastructure improvements made or to be made to directly benefit the parcels for which improvements are declared to be a public purpose, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments, and approving related matters. Whereas Section 5709.40C, Ohio Revised Code, authorizes the legislative authority of a municipal corporation by ordinance to create an incentive district and to declare the increase in the assessed value of any real property within the incentive district that would first appear on the tax list in duplicate of real and public utility property after the effective date of the ordinance, were it not for the exemption granted by the ordinance, referred to in this ordinance as in RC Section 5709.40A4 as the improvements, to be a public purpose and exempt from taxation. And whereas the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, referred to as the municipality, intends to create an incentive district constituting the real property within the municipality described more particularly on Exhibit A attached to and incorporated into this ordinance, the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District, and to exempt 100% of the improvements attributable to new buildings or structures within the incentive district for a period of 30 years. And whereas pursuant to RC Section 5709.42, the municipality intends to require the owner or owners, each an owner and collectively referred to as the owners, of each parcel of real property within the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District, each referred to as a parcel and collectively the parcels, to make annual service payments in lieu of taxes to the Treasurer of Miami County, Ohio, referred to as the County Treasurer, on or before the final dates for payment of real property taxes, and the annual service payments in lieu of taxes are to be charged and collected in the same manner and in the same amount as the real property taxes that would have been charged and payable against the improvements with respect to each parcel if it were not exempt from taxation. And whereas pursuant to RC Section 5709.43A, this council intends to establish a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund into which service payments in lieu of taxes distributed to the municipality shall be deposited, and which from the date of this ordinance shall be used as provided in this ordinance. And whereas the municipality intends to cause the county treasurer to pay a portion of the service payments in lieu of taxes to each of the Milton Union Exempted Village School District, referred to as the Milton Union Schools, and the Miami Valley Career and Technology Center, referred to as the Vocational School, in amounts equal to the amount of real property taxes each of the Milton Union Schools and the Vocational School would have received had this ordinance not been adopted. And whereas, as required by RC Section 5709.40A5F, the municipal engineer has certified to this council that the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District is less than 300 acres in size, the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District is enclosed by continuous boundaries, and the public infrastructure serving the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District is inadequate to meet the development needs of the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District, as evidenced by the municipality's written economic development plan, attached to and incorporated into this ordinance as Exhibit C. And whereas notice of the proposed adoption of this ordinance has been delivered to the Board of Education of the Milton Union Schools in accordance with RC Section 5709.40D2 and 5709.83. And whereas notice of the proposed adoption of this ordinance has been delivered to the Board of Education of the vocational school in accordance with RC Section 5709.83. And whereas notice of the proposed adoption of this ordinance has been delivered to the Board of County Commissioners of Miami County, Ohio, referred to as the county, in accordance with RC Sections 5709.40E and 5709.83, and the county by the passage of resolution numbers CM-17-17 on July 11th, 2017. That's one we just passed earlier,
Yes, I'm
correct?
sorry. We had to
That's
leave
right.
that blank because we hadn't passed the resolution.
Did not object to the exemption for either of the period or the exemption percentage provided in this ordinance, and waived any and all notices the municipality or this council may be required to give the county with regard to this ordinance, including without limitation any and all notices under RC Sections 5709.40 and 5709.83. And whereas notice of the proposed adoption of this ordinance has been delivered by first-class mail to every real property owner whose property is located within the boundaries of the proposed Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District not later than 30 days prior to June 27, 2017, and on June 27, 2017, this council conducted a public hearing on this ordinance. And whereas the overlay within the meaning of RC Section 5709.40A6 provided in the notice delivered to the owners of real property to be included in the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District included all of the real property included in Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District, and therefore no owners of real property were entitled to submit written responses under RC 5709.40C, and this council has not received any written responses. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the Municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, Public Purpose. In accordance with RC Section 5709.40C, the municipality hereby establishes the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District as identified on Exhibit A, attached to and incorporated into this ordinance, and further declares that the improvements to the parcels within the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District attributable to new buildings or structures subsequent to the effective date of this ordinance are a public purpose. The council hereby finds and determines, in accordance with RC Section 5709.40C3B, that the improvements attributable to the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District are expected to result from the construction of approximately 132 single-family homes.
I should say 133. That's my bad misprint.
Okay, 133 single-family homes. This council hereby finds and determines that those homes will place additional demand on the public infrastructure improvements designated in Section 6 of this ordinance. Section 2, TIF exemption. Pursuant to RC Section 5709.40C, the municipality hereby exempts 100% of the improvements within the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District from taxation for a period of 30 years, commencing on the first day of the first tax year in which an improvement that is attributable to one or more new buildings or structures within the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District would have first appeared on the tax list and duplicate of real and public utility property were it not for the exemption granted by this ordinance, referred to as the commencement date. In no case shall any improvements on any parcel be exempted from taxation for longer than 30 years. The county has not objected to either the exemption percentage or term of the exemption described in this Section 2, and therefore the county shall not receive any compensation with respect to this ordinance. Section 3, service payments. Pursuant to RC Section 5709.42, during the period when the exemption granted by this ordinance is in effect, the owner or owners are hereby required to make and shall make service payments in lieu of taxes with respect to the improvements to the county treasurer on or before the final dates for payment of real property taxes. Each service payment in lieu of taxes shall be charged and collected in the same manner and in the same amount as the real property taxes that would have been charged and payable against the improvements on each parcel as if it were not exempt from taxation under Section 2 of this ordinance. Section 4, distribution of service payments. At the same times and in the same manner as real property tax distributions, the county treasurer shall distribute the service payments with respect to improvements to the municipality in the following order of priority. First, to each of the Milton Union schools and the vocational school in an amount equal to the amount of real property taxes each of the Milton Union schools and the vocational school would have received had this ordinance not been adopted. And second, to the municipality for deposit in the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District Fund defined and established in Section 5 of this ordinance. The municipality shall distribute the service payments in the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District Fund after each semi-annual settlement of real property taxes and in the following order of priority. First, to pay the costs of the public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 6 of this ordinance by paying service payments to one or more Ohio port authorities, referred to individually and collectively as the authority. or to the authority's trustee or agent for application by the authority or the authority's trustee or agent to pay the cost of public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 6 of this ordinance, including but not limited to the payment of the sum of principal of interest and premium, if any, on, and administrative fees and expenses, if any, due, collectively debt service payments, with respect to revenue bonds, as the same may be refunded or reissued from time to time in accordance with their terms or otherwise, to be issued at rates, terms, and principal amounts as are approved by the municipality by the authority, referred to as the authority bonds, to pay the costs of the public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 6 of this ordinance. Second, to pay the costs of public infrastructure improvements identified in Section 6 of this ordinance by paying or reimbursing the municipality or any other party for the costs of public infrastructure improvements incurred or to be incurred under this ordinance. And third, if service payments remain in the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District Fund used by the municipality for any lawful purpose. Section 5, Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District Fund. This council, under RC Section 5709.43, hereby establishes the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District Fund, referred to as the Fund, in the custody of the municipality. The fund shall receive all distributions of service payments required to be made to the municipality pursuant to this ordinance. The service payments received by the municipality shall be deposited into the fund under RC Section 5709.43 and distributed under RC Section 5709.42 and this ordinance. The service payments received by the municipality shall be used solely for the purposes authorized in RC Sections 5709.40, 5709.42, 5709.43, and 5709.82, including but not limited to paying the costs of the public infrastructure improvements as defined in Section 6 of this ordinance, and paying debt service payments on the authority bonds or on any other securities issued to acquire or finance the public infrastructure improvements in a manner which is consistent with this ordinance. The municipality shall use all service payments received and deposited into the fund as provided in this ordinance. For all purposes of this ordinance, costs of the public infrastructure improvements payable from the fund also shall include the items of costs of permanent improvements described in RC Section 133.15B and incurred for the public infrastructure improvements. The fund shall remain in existence so long as such service payments are collected and used under this ordinance. Then the fund shall be dissolved, and any surplus funds remaining in the fund shall be distributed under Section 4 of this ordinance. Section 6, Public Infrastructure Improvements. The municipality hereby designates the public infrastructure improvements described in Exhibit B attached to and incorporated into this ordinance by this reference as the public infrastructure improvements, as that term is defined in RC Section 5709.40A7, which are made, are to be made, or are in the process of being made by or on behalf of the municipality that directly benefit or once made will directly benefit the parcels. Section 7, Municipal Engineer Certifications. Under RC Section 5709.40A5F, the municipal engineer has certified to this council that the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District is less than 300 acres in size, the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District is enclosed by continuous boundaries, and the public infrastructure serving the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District is inadequate to meet the development needs of the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District as evidenced by the municipality's written economic development plan attached to and incorporated into this ordinance as Exhibit C. Each of the municipal engineer certifications are hereby incorporated into this ordinance. Section 8, Application for Real Property Tax Exemption and Remission. This council further authorizes and directs the municipal manager, the municipal law director, municipal finance director, or other appropriate officers of the municipality to make such arrangements as are necessary and proper for collection of service payments from owners, to make payment of the service payments to the municipality to be deposited into the fund, to prepare and sign all agreements and instruments as may be necessary to implement this ordinance, including any applications for real property tax exemption and remission, and to take all other actions as may be appropriate to implement this ordinance. RC Section 5709.911 shall govern the priority status of the exemptions provided under this ordinance. Under RC Sections 5709.40C and 5709.911, the municipality intends to apply for the exemption from real property taxation under this ordinance. Not later than 30 days prior to June 27, 2017, this council delivered notice by first-class mail of a public hearing regarding this ordinance, referred to as the residential notice. The residential notice included an overlay within the meaning of RC Section 5709.40A6, which included all of the real property within the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District. On June 27, 2017, this council conducted a public hearing regarding this ordinance. No real property within the Stillwater Crossing TIF Incentive District was located in whole or in part outside of the overlay provided in the residential notice, and therefore no owners of real property were entitled to submit written responses to the residential notice under RC Section 5709.40C, and no written responses were received. Section 9 ODSA, pursuant to RC Section 5709.40I, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to deliver a copy of this ordinance to the Director of the Ohio Development Services Agency, ODSA, within 15 days after its adoption. On or before March 31st of each year that an exemption granted in Section 2 of this ordinance remains in effect, the officer or officers authorized by Section 8 of this ordinance to take actions necessary to implement this ordinance shall prepare and submit to the Director of ODSA the status report required under RC Section 5709.40G. Section 10, Tax Incentive Review Council. The municipality hereby maintains the West Milton Tax Incentive Review Council, the membership of which is and shall remain constituted in accordance with RC Section 5709.85. In accordance with RC Section 5709.85, the West Milton Tax Incentive Review Council reviews and shall continue to review annually all exemptions from taxation resulting from the declarations set forth in this ordinance and any other such matters as may properly come before it, all in accordance with RC Section 5709.85. Section 11, Open Meetings. This council finds and determines that all formal actions of this council and any of its committees concerning and relating to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were in open meetings to the public, all in compliance with the law, including RC Section 121.22. Section 12, this ordinance shall be effective from and after the earliest time provided by law.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
You're welcome.
That was the first reading of CM 17-1. Manager Klein, any comments?
No, we had a public hearing a couple weeks ago to try to answer everyone's questions. No, I don't have any more comments.
I wasn't here, did you read that?
I don't want to keep it, I'd like to be able to answer questions before they ask me. In this one, in section 7, it talked about the municipal engineers certifications.
Mhm.
Is that choice 1 in place of us not having engineers, or
That-
what?
They're under contract with us as our municipal engineer.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay, I just didn't remember having one on staff. I guess I'm just still, this minimum service payment, because there's a whole section on it in the commercial but not in the residential. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. That's for when they buy a parcel of land, but they have not improved it yet. And the developer is requiring a minimum payment from that new owner, even though they haven't built anything on it yet, or a tax equivalent amount.
I believe that's what, I'm assuming,
Okay,
that's what Mr. Locke was referring to with an agreement between the developer and Ryan Holmes.
so that's between the two of them. Okay,
That's what I was assuming when he was referring to that during his comments.
okay.
Anything else? Anyone else on council have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. That finishes up our ordinances and resolutions. Over to Manager Klein with his comments for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. I also have 5 pages of comment. No. Just a few items this evening, Mayor, Council. The guests that remained, I don't hear any crickets and everyone stayed awake, so congratulations. And thank you for staying. Like I said, only a couple items. I'm sure everyone's been noticing we've had quite a few storms that have we've been experiencing lately that have produced an extraordinary amount of rain. And we've had at least 4 or 5 storms which have produced in excess of 2.5 inches. A couple is upwards to nearly 5 inches in a very short period of time. The results have been a few flooding conditions on several of our streets. We've received a number of calls about them, and we wanted to let everyone know we are aware of the issue, or the issues, I should say. Unfortunate truth is that once an underground pipe is full, you simply can't get any more water in it. Now, having said that, there is one situation that has bothered us in the last several weeks, and that's been on the far south side of town near Baker Road. There seems to have been a shift in the way water has been draining. Yesterday, Ben and his men discovered in the middle of the cornfield to the west, there's water just bubbling up out of the ground. So something has happened internally, I guess you'd want to say it, geologically. They discovered it yesterday. They've had some conversations with the farmer who now realizes that it's an issue. Obviously, it's private property and land. We're not sure exactly where, if this field has drainage tiles. However, what we can try to do and what Ben and his men have tried to do is there's really no simple solution, but we're trying to increase the size of the ditch that's along that area to try to divert the water, because of right now on a large event, like I'm saying, 2-3 inches of rain, which falls really quick, you're getting a lot of not only water but mud shearing across the road there. So it does become a little hazardous. So we started to tackle it today. I'm sure Ben and his guys will have that hopefully finished in the next few days. At least attempting it and hoping we don't get another large rain event, but we hope that that might try to temporarily solve the problem.
Who's responsible for removing that mud from the ditch after it clogs the ditch? That's the city?
Actually, they did finish that today. You guys got that done today.
Oh, good.
Dusty and guys got it all taken care of. I mean, when the silt comes in, I mean, you obviously.
That's a
know
lot of
where it's
topsoil in
coming
there.
from, but you can see layers from where it started months ago. Pretty much this all started when we got that big rain that we had all the flooding, and ever since then we've been having problems. So some of the silt that was there came off of the field. I mean, we just hauled it all away and made the ditch, basically we oversized the ditch to handle the extra runoff. So.
When that flooded, it looked like you could have kayaked down that cornfield, and I've never, my lifetime, seen anything like that.
There before. Something opened up. We have open, like you can picture Yellowstone. We have two spots that look like that. You can stick your hand down inside the rock and feel the water coming out of the ground. So it's pretty unusual.
Where is Baker Road?
Just right down from our church.
South.
That's
So it's
right
the
across from American Legion, where that church is
Future-
right there.
Okay.
Side of Stillwater Springs, bottled water.
Yeah.
We don't have a water line anywhere near there, do we?
No.
Okay, just check.
There's absolutely no water line.
Would they try to divert that to that creek that's,
The issue is to run field tile, you need a certain amount of depth below the soil line. And we stuck, you can lean down and stick your hand in and feel the rock. So the issue will be, is it able to be field tile, which is what we'll have to look at. Maybe we'll talk to the farmer about possibly ways to swale some of the flow towards Baker and let the rest of it go towards the new ditch that we just, Dusty and the guys did today.
With it being a state route and it affecting a state route, does ODOT, can they get involved, or will they? No, too small?
The simple answer is no, they won't get involved because it's inside our jurisdiction.
who's the property owner? Is that it?
We talked to the farmer, but I'm not sure who actually owns that property. We didn't quite make it that far.
I don't know why, but I'm thinking Wheelock.
It could be.
I mean, I could, just in the back of my head somewhere.
So anyway, we just wanted to let everyone know we are aware of it, and we're trying to solve some of the issues. Some of the issues just simply aren't going to be able to be solved, and when you get 4 inches of rain in a very short period of time, you just have to let the water drain down. So Couple things about our parks. I attended an Ohio Public Works Commission Natural Resources Assistance Council meeting this afternoon, where we made a presentation on a grant application in hopes of acquiring the approximate 1.5 acre parcel of ground and house near the entrance of our park. These grants are competitive, and after making some adjustments to our initial application, which was surprisingly accepted by the council today, I'm happy to report that we will be awarded a grant in the amount of $73,078, which represents 60% of the estimated cost for acquisition and cleanup of the property. And what I mean by cleanup of the property is demoing the house and the pool and everything else. Also will allow us to get rid of invasive species, primarily
Honeysuckle.
thank you, honeysuckle, and also any dead ash that's along that bank. So I was very pleased. I was also tickled that we made the presentation to the council today. It's called NRAC, Natural Resources Assistance Council, and they allowed it to us to make. It's all based on a point system, and we just simply didn't point high enough. A lot of this is they call it green grants. It's for preservation of certain grasses and wetlands and stuff like that, and this obviously isn't that. But they did see this was a natural. It made sense for us to acquire this property, so we were pleased for them to award us the $70,000 grant. Now, as for a calendar of events, we won't receive the actual grant contracts or anything probably until the end of August at the earliest. But it's good news.
Good news.
So I was very pleased. And then finally, as many of you already know, we're also happy to report that the first major phase of a new and improved playground is pretty much now complete. There's still work to do along the west side of the property, which will include landscaping and the construction of a concrete slide, along with a couple of smaller play pieces for toddlers. That second phase will happen in the spring of 2018, once we go through the budget process. But we've received dozens of compliments, and I saw kids again today just playing on the structure. So I hope you're receiving them as well. And we were very fortunate. We demanded in our contract that it would be completed by or before the July 4th festivities, and they were able to pull that off. So
yeah, looks great.
Yep.
Quick question with that. I know that this was the year, because you can only apply for the
every other year.
Every other year. Did the park board, did you apply for another grant for what would be available for Miami County, or we're not able to do that yet?
We have not done that yet. We have not talked about that, and I believe the grant applications are due in November, so.
Oh, it's November.
I think so.
Okay, because I remember before it was May. Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Very good.
I'll check.
No problem. Just curious. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, that finishes my report for this evening.
Great. Thanks, Manager Klein. Old business. Anybody have any old business? I guess it's old business. I just want to say a huge, huge thank you again to Jack Scudmore and his wife for continuing to keep our 4th of July celebration going. I'll tell you, I think it was by far the best 4th of July fireworks display that we have ever had here in West Milton. It was great. I mean, people were just raving about it when we were up on the top of the hill. So a lot of kudos to Jack and his wife. And thank you to the folks that were involved in the committee, Alan Lay and Justin Fallon, for putting together the fundraiser for the t-shirts. I think they ended up raising enough money to carry over to next year. Some funds. They were about $3,400 short this year, so they're able to carry that over. And I think we did pretty well with the vendors on the top of the hill as far as the donations. So far I've received 2, and just from those two vendors, roughly almost $400. So, which is very good, just out of two vendors. So that's wonderful. And a thank you to Joey for driving us in the parade. That was great to finally be as a group instead of individually in the cars, and it was a lot of fun to ride together on the truck, the municipal truck. So that was good.
I was able to, one of the members of the NRAC council today, this afternoon, he actually drove a vehicle in our parade. Said it's the first time that he's ever done that. He drove the same vehicle in Troy, and he said he pretty much knew everybody there and single people here, there, and everywhere. And then he came over here and he said he was just blown away by how many people were lined up in the parade route.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Good. Good deal. Any other old business?
Reminder that the Kids Market Day is this Saturday.
Oh,
We're
great.
inviting kids to come sell and so
Sounds
come
great.
and check it out.
Okay.
Grandmas and parents
Will
and
do.
grandparents.
Sounds great. Any new business? I have one more piece of business as far as new business to bring up, and I'll just bring this up just real quick generally, and we can talk about it more at a workshop, but please be thinking about it. I've been driving through town and seeing the Hometown Hero banners, and I just keep thinking, okay, we're missing the boat here. We have got to do something that we can broadcast this out for people to see. What we've done here in our community with the Hometown Hero banner. So what I'm trying to propose is maybe we can try to work with Tom, with WMPA, and we can set up a series of days. And we can, I know it's gonna be some work, but I'm willing to take it on and spearhead it if people are interested in it and wanna do it. But start from one end of town, go to the other end of town and back, and do maybe 20 or 30 banners at a time, and invite people that have paid for those banners to come out and give a 1 or 2 minute testimony or bit of information about that Hometown Hero flag, if the person is still living, if they're still active duty, if they've deceased, if they were killed in action, what have you, and then be able to compile all of that and have it to where people can see, you know, more information about each one of the Hometown Hero banners and have some attachment to it, because that's the bad thing. You drive through town, you really can't see who's on the banners. It's hard to see some of them and the dates and what service they're in and so forth. So just something I'll throw out there. We can talk about it more at a workshop, but I think we got to do something before we take them down. We need to do something like that and compile it together for people to view. So, and that's it. Any comments by citizens? Wow. They're quiet. Okay. And they're still awake.
Well, and I would. My name is Nicole Miller, and I live at 59 Donna Jane Court here in West Milton. And I just want to tell you guys again, thank you, because I think you're doing some really, really nice work. Congratulations, because it feels like it's moving forward in a positive way. I hope that doesn't jinx it. but thanks for all the work you guys have done. It's been fun to watch and fun to see.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.